of darkness. But to utilize the full power of the Crow constellation, he needs to gain more divinity. As his divinity increases, more abilities will get unlocked. Eye of the Crow allows the user to spawn crows that can scout the area from the skies. There is also no limit to the number of crows that can be spawned, but they become harder to control as he creates more. Then the Veil of Darkness ability allows the user to blend themselves into the darkness. It's different from the ability that Karis used before, and it's likely that the effect changes depending on the user. Although he only got the lowest level of divinity, it's still a huge gain, and he might also be able to find the observer of a certain god in Daejeon. The god is a witch who loved humanity but still wanted every human to live and die for Seihan. Since there's nothing else to do, Seihan decides to take a quick nap until they arrive at Daejeon. On the other side of the train, a lone player runs for his life as all his comrades drop like insects. This person is definitely the girl he heard about in rumors. She has all black clothes and dark hair, and when her hair turns red, nobody can get out alive. He continues to run, but a blunt object slams into the back of his head, pushing him to the ground before he can make an escape. Jisoo stands menacingly in front of him, and it looks like there is no hope of escape. He begs for his life, promising that he will never do something like this again for the rest of his life if she spares him. However, Jisoo doesn't believe him and finds his pitiful begging to be amusing, so she flashes him a smile while stretching her hand to finish him off. The train arrives at Daejeon Station, and as soon as the doors open, people run out of the train screaming for their lives. Seihan comes out from his end, confused as to why there's so much commotion on the other end of the train. His answer comes calmly walking down the stairs, and she greets him with a large smile. It's Jisoo, and somehow Seihan had no idea what they were even on the same train. Now that they've met up, he asks her if she successfully took care of business. She took care of what she needed to do, then took the train once she noticed that Seihan was on it. She was checking the map consistently to always know his location so they could meet up again. That's pretty obsessive, but Seihan decides not to comment on it. But if she was constantly aware of his location, that means that she knew he was in Lome World. Fighting the Crow would have been a lot easier if Jisoo was around. At first, she wanted to go right away, but the third main quest started while she was on her way there. It wasn't very difficult for her, but there was a lot to take care of, and because of that, she ran a little late. Seihan admits that he came to Daejeon to fight the boss in the area, and Jisoo is not surprised. She doesn't even ask him why he came all the way here, because she's used to him doing things that don't make sense. In fact, she would have been fine with his decision even if he only came all this way to buy bread in the area. It's odd to hear that from her, and Seihan doesn't know if she thinks highly of him or not. For now, the two of them start moving towards their final destination, Dunsan, and Seihan explains the details to her as they make their way there. Back in Seoul, Silim, Mina walks through the streets in search of some people that Seihan told her about. She doesn't know the exact location, but she has been walking for a while at this point, and still can't find them. Before he left, Seihan wrote down some distinct characteristics of the people she should be looking for. They are a blonde-haired family of 2, and the drawings he made are rather crude. The father is a big American man with a strange laugh, and the daughter is a 13-year-old multiracial girl. By the looks of the area, there seems to have been a monster attack recently that killed a lot of people. As she walks through the wreckage, a wolf monster leaps out from the darkness and tries to ambush her. Mina is prepared, and turns around to finish the beast in one blow, but someone else beats her to it, slamming a large chunk of concrete on the beast, and knocking it away. Mina turns towards the direction that the concrete came from, and sees 2 people that perfectly match the descriptions and drawings that Seihan gave her. She goes up to meet them, and thanks the man for helping her to defeat the monster. As they talk, even his laugh is exactly like what Seihan described, but the man's daughter stops him before he can go on to embarrass her. The girl can tell from the number of gods observing her that Mina is probably even stronger than her father. All that's left is to confirm their names. The man is Luke Taylor, and his daughter is Lynn. These are the people that Seihan was looking for. Mina takes the opportunity to ask if she can join them on their travels. The man threw a giant chunk of concrete, which means that he is definitely a player, but she's not so sure about the girl. Luke is more than happy to have her join their group, but Lynn is a lot more skeptical about helping someone that is stronger than them. As the two of them bicker, Mina turns away to send a message to Seihan, confirming that she has found the people she was sent to look for. Traveling with these people might be worth it since Seihan recommended it, but he also called them the key to humanity's future. Back in Daejeon, soldiers sweep the streets with heavy artillery, looking for any signs of monsters. It looks like society is trying to pick itself back up again, despite everything happening in the world. A soldier approaches the two of them as they scan the area and asks if they are players. Apparently, there has been an order to examine all the existing players, and it looks like the government is trying to control the players while the world is in its current state. Instead of answering the soldier's questions, Seihan discreetly tells Jisoo to run towards a building in the distance. The two of them move separately, before jumping away before the soldier can do anything to stop them. They land on the top of a skyscraper, and Jisoo walks up to Seihan, curious about why they came all the way to the top of this building. Seihan wants to try and use his new Eye of the Crow ability to scan the area for the raid boss. He activates it, and crows start to fly out of his shadow, soaring into the air. The ability is still crude, and he has much to improve, but this will still allow him to get a bird's eye view of the area. Meanwhile, he asks to check her stats, which Jisoo is more than open to. It almost looks like Jisoo never says no to him, no matter what he asks. He opens her status menu, and her stats are incredibly strong for someone who should be playing the game normally. She also learned 2 new skills called Anatomy Mastery and Vital Strike, and somehow brought her regeneration ability up to C rank. Her Celestial Slayer ability has also been ranked up to a 3-star ability, which is weird, because she should have shown at least some signs of madness if her Celestial Slayer ability is this high. As he looks through her stats, he gets a signal from the crows, indicating that they have found something. They head over to the area indicated by the crows, and from the damage, they can tell that whatever was in the area was not an ordinary monster. This wreckage must be the aftermath of a raid boss. Jisoo asks Seihan how he has all this information, but as usual, he doesn't answer. The raid boss coming out so early is weird though, because there are still a lot of hours left on the timer. The timers aren't reliable, and most of them are just a trick to throw people off. The area has large markings from big claws and wings. It's likely that some sort of winged monster fought with a different beast. But in actuality, all these markings were made by the same beast. And that beast lands heavily right behind them and attempts to swipe at them with its giant claws. It's a gungi, which is a black tiger with gigantic white wings, and also one of the 4 deadly mythical monsters of Chinese mythology. Seihan expected to have to search for some time before finding it, but instead, the beast came right to them. That means the dungeon is close by since this beast has been lurking around it. Right then, the 4th main quest shows up, and it's a quest to defeat the creature before it completely destroys the city. Seihan and Jisoo happen to encounter it unexpectedly soon, which is why the quest only popped out for the 2 of them. Jisoo also notices that there's an incredibly strong blood scent coming from somewhere nearby. Seihan also notices a horn embedded in the gungi's chest, which means that it came across another beast recently. The creature tries to attack Seihan one last time before running away. The horn in the creature's chest wasn't supposed to happen for a long time according to Seihan's memories from his past life. It looks like things are starting to change from what he remembers. With the creature gone, Seihan runs into the dungeon with Jisoo close behind. And just like he expected, the dungeon wasn't the gungi's lair. It belonged to a Kirin, which is a one-horned divine beast. And that horn with divine power has been embedded in the chest of the already powerful gungi. The Kirin's horn has great potential energy, and it's the source of the beast's power. Seihan originally planned to go for the Kirin's horn while they searched for the gungi, but that plan has been ruined. On top of that, if the gungi manages to absorb the horn's power, then it will be a major threat. Jisoo suggests that they search the area since there might be a hidden reward somewhere. But since the dungeon's tier isn't very high, there's probably nothing good enough to replace the Kirin's horn with. However, unexpectedly, Jisoo finds something among the wreckage in the area. Seihan wonders if it's mithril, which is the strongest metal right after orichalcum. But even that wouldn't be enough to replace the horn. What Jisoo found is actually an egg, and it's no ordinary egg either. It's the egg of a Kirin, and usually, when a Kirin sits on it for a long time, a new Kirin is born. However, now that they have it, they can use it to form a divine beast. Seihan immediately buys more items from his premium store and prepares the equipment that he will need to hatch the Kirin fruit and birth a new divine beast. After setting everything up, all they need to do is add a player's blood as the catalyst. The blood has to be applied within the next 48 hours, and the blood will also directly affect the Pur's stats and abilities. Seihan knows for sure that they can do better than his blood, and he initially considers using Jisoo's blood. However, her Celestial Slayer abilities could make things complicated in the future. Then he considers using Mina, since it would be impossible to find a decent player within the time limit. Mina's stats and abilities are better than average anyways, so it should work out. As he's trying to figure out what to do, he gets a message from Mina, and it couldn't have come at a better time. Mina waits with a family of 2 in the rubble of the ruined streets. Seihan never replied to her, and she has no idea if he's even coming or not. Eventually, he sends a message back to her, asking her where she is at the moment. Not even a compliment or anything for her hard work. She begrudgingly tells him where they are, and after a brief moment with more silence, Jisoo and Seihan appear right behind her out of nowhere. From the sweat on their bodies and the lack of breath, it looks like both of them ran back from Daejeon. Luke comes to introduce himself to the new arrivals while his daughter hides behind him. Seihan introduces himself in Jisoo, and Luke assumes that Mina must have given them his name since they have just met, and Seihan already seems to know him. With introductions done, Seihan turns to Mina, and she's still annoyed that he didn't even compliment her for her hard work. So he gives her a gift to say thank you for everything she's done for him so far. It's a mithril ore which should be good for her to eat since she can absorb it into her body. Mina can barely believe that she got something so precious, and her anger quickly diffuses as she receives the gift. Next he goes over to Lin and shows her the divine beast egg. He is going to need her help to awaken it, and all she has to do is lay her hand on it. Despite her fears of something bad happening, Luke encourages her to go ahead with it since Seihan doesn't seem like a bad person. She places her hand on top of the egg, and immediately, a sharp spike comes out from the top and pricks her hand, causing her to bleed. He lies that the outer layer of the egg must have scrapped her hand. The John is done though, and the tools accept Lin's blood as the catalyst for the fruit of Kirin. All he needs to do now is add some nourishment and wait for it to hatch. Mina comes up and asks why exactly she was supposed to find these 2 people anyways, but it's hard for Seihan to explain. She'll figure it out eventually, but for now, he wants Mina to stick with them as much as she can. That won't be too hard since they seem to trust them, and she is already expecting a reward for doing it. Originally, Seihan thought he wouldn't need anyone else since it's his second playthrough, but he realized something after seeing how Karis and the Minotaur had changed. He will need to take the system's intervention into consideration from now on, and that's why he will need Lynn Taylor, the player whose strength and talent surprised even the gods themselves. She is the pinnacle of humanity. Now that the catalyst has been added, the egg starts to grow, and it looks like it's preparing to hatch. Seihan tells Lin that she doesn't need to call him Mr. since he's not that old, but Mina reminds him that he's 10 years older than her. Mina also considers calling him Mr. since he's 4 years older than her as well. That angers Jisoo though, and Mina clarifies that it's a joke to avoid Jisoo's intense stare. Now that they are done with introductions, it's time for the next course of action. Mina asks Seihan if he's going back to Daejeon, but it's not like he can defeat the raid boss even if he goes back there right now. Mina still thinks that the raid boss hasn't spawned, but Jisoo clarifies that they have already run into it once. The 3 of them step away for a moment to explain everything that has happened so far to Mina. The raid boss is large, and it's comparable to a sentinel in strength. The sentinel may be stronger in combat, but the raid boss has a lot of health points, so it's a lot harder to kill. It also has a much larger range of action than a sentinel, so the damage it could cause would be much worse. All of that means that Seihan should hurry up and kill it, but it's far too early for that, and the other players wouldn't be ready for it right now. There's also a new variable to consider with the raid boss since it is in the process of absorbing a Kirin horn. Seihan tries to remember if the raid boss got stabbed with a Kirin horn in his last life as well, or if something changed when he decided to go to Daejeon. He never traveled to Daejeon in his previous life, but the raid boss ambushed them as if it were waiting for them. On top of that, it left a lot of obvious traces as if it were trying to lure them in. The Gungi also engaged with the Kirin way too early as well, and it hasn't even been 3 days since the raid boss announcement was made. Too many things are uncertain right now, and it gets stranger the more he thinks about it. It could be the system trying to interfere with him again, or it could be a different reason. One thing that comes to mind is Archytus, the GM of Korea. The god himself sits on his throne and watches a reply of Seihan and Jisoo fighting the Gungi. He didn't expect an ordinary player to get away so easily, and he even took something from the dungeon as he left. It's most likely a Kirin fruit. But Archytus is sure that he wouldn't know how to hatch it, even if it were a Kirin fruit. The more important question is why the Gungi is so weak. It's completely worn out from a simple horn in its rib. Archytus even gave it a chance to absorb the horn, but it's still weak. He then decides to change things in a way that wouldn't be too obvious by slightly raising its regeneration and adaptive abilities. With this little buff, it may end up turning into a ridiculous monster. 2 weeks later, a lot closer to the release of the raid boss, Seihan and Jisoo return to Daejeon. There is a noticeably higher army presence there than the last time they visited. It's likely that they are trying to prove that they only lost the last invasion, because they weren't fully prepared. It's rather foolish though, since guns are completely ineffective against monsters. However, they may not do a lot of damage, but they certainly still hurt a lot. It would still be meaningless against a raid boss though. It would be better for them to leave it to the player to take care of it. But if they did that, then the players would gain more authority. The government has finally regained some power after the open world announcement, and they don't want to let go of that. Jisoo doesn't like it, but there's not much she can do to change it. Seihan encourages her to move to where the rest of the players are for now. There are noticeably more players in Daejeon than in his previous playthrough. It looks like a lot of them are looking for party members to defeat the raid boss, and others are preparing for the quest to begin. One of the people approaches him and asks if he wants to join their party, but Seihan refuses, since he has no plan of joining a party. The player continues to pester him some more, assuming that he is just refusing because he wants to leave an impression in front of the girl, but people who act like that will only end up dying in the end. As Seihan and Jisoo ignore them and walk away, the man walks away in a huff, convinced that both of them will learn their lesson sooner or later. It's painfully obvious though that the guy is the one who's trying to impress Jisoo. He obviously wants her to join his party, but he clearly doesn't know what he's dealing with. Jisoo overhears his snarky attitude and offers to take care of the guy, but Seihan calms her down and tells her to just keep moving. They'll be the first ones to go when the raid boss appears anyway. As they continue to walk in the crowd, Seihan notices Dongwon Park lurking through the streets. Dongwon also notices him and immediately covers his face in an attempt to hide. His attempts are futile though, and Seihan quickly walks up to him before he can walk away. According to Dongwon, Hyungyun went to Cheongju to check on his family, and he was told to come to Daejeon. From his new gear, Seihan can tell that this guy got a lot done during his third quest, and he should have obtained new abilities as well. It probably wasn't a succession ability yet, though since those can't be acquired through any ordinary means. A chosen avatar can only learn one through a god, which is why the abilities are unconventionally powerful. Hyungyun or an Honest Life must have been the ones to order Dongwon to come to Daejeon. Seihan decides to take a quick peek in the god forums, and they are still talking about him since he defeated Karis. Everyone speculates that he must be in Daejeon since something interesting is happening there. Young Jester is still disappointed that Mina decided not to follow him, but she reveals that he left something interesting with her. However, despite others prying in, she refuses to tell them what that interesting thing is. It's obvious that she's talking about the Kirin fruit, but knowing her, she will keep the knowledge to herself since she doesn't like to share any info. Luke Taylor's goddess should also be fine to trust since she's not one to spread rumors. Then he turns his attention back to Dongwon and asks if he managed to learn the crown manipulation ability. Dongwon tries to lie, but Seihan shows off the crystal controlling his collar, and that changes his attitude immediately. He reveals that he learnt it, and Seihan is about to tell him to use it, but one of his crows in the sky spots something dangerous. He changes his tone and orders Dongwon to use the ability immediately, because if he doesn't, then everyone in the area will die. The raid boss is rapidly approaching their location, and it seems like it plans to ambush the players while they are unaware. There's still a lot of time left before it's meant to spawn, which means its main goal is to have a feast before the main battle. Since Dongwon is too slow on the uptake, Seihan tries to warn everyone to run before the boss shows up, but no one believes him. There's still 10 minutes before the raid boss is meant to arrive, and people think he's lying. They continue to ignore him, and it's clear that they won't be convinced by words alone, so he runs back to Dongwon and orders him again to use his ability. However, he can't just use it on anyone, and he first needs to be in a situation where he can get himself into the target's mind psychologically. Since that's the case, Seihan tells Jisoo to bring out her weapon and get ready. When he gives her a signal, he wants her to break a nearby fire hydrant to distract the people. Then he tells Dongwon to use his crowd manipulation ability when the raid boss appears and puts everyone in a panic. Dongwon agrees, but even he doesn't think that the boss will appear. Even if it does, it's unlikely that the crowd would be so easily panicked by it. However, Seihan assures him that things are about to get wild, and he also prepares himself for battle. The ground starts to shake and people begin to look around in fear as the monster approaches. Some even check the time of the raid boss's arrival, but it's already too late. The ground bursts open and a giant paw comes slamming down towards Seihan. He uses the pile bunker to counter it as Jisoo jumps in to aid him, slamming the paw back down to the ground, causing the monster to roar in pain. The other players start to realize that the raid boss really has shown up, and the military takes action immediately as well. They open fire towards the area that the monster came out of and empty every weapon that they have in its direction. However, once the smoke clears, the monster is still alive and well, and the soldiers start to retreat in fear as it stalks towards them. Then it roars one more time, fully clearing the smoke, and showing that it had a major change in appearance with white fur now instead of black, and large red spikes growing all over its body. It looks like it's evolving to its final form, which will be a big problem for the players if it does. Once it properly evolves to its final form, the Gungi will be as strong as a sentinel, and on top of that, its active area will expand even further, making it more difficult to deal with. For it to have taken the power of the horn so easily, that means that the GM was personally involved with this. The raid boss roars and starts attacking the people around. With no hesitation, the soldiers continue shooting at the raid boss with everything they have got. When the bullets show no effect on it, and its single breath makes them slide back from their positions, Kim Se-han yells at Dongguan to do what he was told earlier. Dongguan abides by the order, and using the skill, crowd control, he urges the crowd to evacuate the place right away and leave it to the players. When they try to argue, he asks them to notice that the contemporary weapons are useless against the raid boss. However, before the crowd is convinced, Dongguan's ability's duration is over, whereas Kim Se-han thinks that the players have received their fourth main quest. This results in the crowd again charging towards the raid boss in order to attack it. When one of the civilians gets really close to it, the raid boss almost steps on the person, but Kim Se-han manages to save the man. He quickly thanks Se-han, saying that he let his guard down for a second, but Se-han advises him to be more cautious since the raid boss is not all about its size. Kim Se-han contemplates the best approach and weapon to attack the raid boss, whereas the civilians also note that the raid boss won't be affected by the long-ranged attacks. Kim Se-han worries about how to deal with the raid boss because it may turn into its final form at any time. Suddenly, the raid boss's wings grow even larger, and then it flaps its wings while grunting and flies up in the sky. This results in even greater destruction of buildings as well as astonishment among the people since they were not expecting it to have flying capabilities. They argue whether they should run at this point or not since the raid boss is going to destroy the whole city if it attacks the ground. Kim Se-han decides to drag the raid boss down before it can attack the ground. He connects his spears with chains and throws them at the raid boss in the sky, which makes the civilians surprised at his strength. Kim Se-han calls out the people from the crowd to help him pull down the raid boss with the chains. When the civilians see that Han Jisoo has already joined Kim Se-han, they realize that if the girl can do so, then they can too. Therefore, the people join in and start pulling the chains. On the command, they all pull it down with a jerk, and the raid boss falls down on the ground, but blue currents start regulating through its body. Kim Se-han wonders if its metamorphosis has begun to transform him into its final stage. Thus, in order to stop it, he jumps up high and pierces his sharp weapon into the raid boss's face. However, after a loud grunt, the raid boss jumps up unaffected once again, which makes Kim Se-han admit its toughness and strength. Kim Se-han wonders why his attack was ineffective when he clearly felt his attack hitting its skull. Han Jisoo tells him to leave it on her because she is better equipped to deal with the raid boss. With that said, she stabs her own heart to maximize the Celestial Slayer's effect, amplifying the damage output. The regeneration ability heals the wound immediately, enabling her to move like that. Han Jisoo jumps up high and lands on the head of the raid boss. When Kim Se-han has realized the future moves of Han Jisoo, he instructs everyone to move back as far as they can. She hits the raid boss's head with her full strength, and as the people run away, it hits his head on the ground. With a last swing of her weapon, she makes the last hit, and the raid boss grunts loudly in pain. The raid boss grunts and roars out loud with an attempt to attack Han Jisoo. She is about to make another hit at the raid boss when Kim Se-han shouts out her name, telling her to stop since it might get quite dangerous for her in this situation. After receiving several powerful hits by Jisoo, the raid boss grunts in pain and bites down on her. However, it fails to swallow them due to their magical properties. The raid boss loses its calm and starts grunting and roaring while shaking his head around. The crowd wonders what's happening to it until the raid boss loses his consciousness and falls on the ground. People start getting closer to it in order to check if the raid boss is still alive or dead. While the people are taking closer looks at the raid boss, Jisoo suddenly comes out of its mouth and walks over to Se-han. The chat room of the Raejeon region of the South Korean server goes crazy when they get to know how Kim Se-han and Jisoo managed to kill the raid boss. After praising them and Dongguan, people start to discuss why their regional raid boss's stats were quite higher than they should have been. This raises their suspicion over the fact that GM might be involved in raising the stats of the raid boss. When asked the reason for this suspicion by a fellow player, the player explains that everyone else is also saying this because the GM even killed Karis. One of them suggests submitting feedback, mentioning the danger of the GM starting to harm even the avatars if they let him be. Therefore, they mutually decide to put an end to this by submitting their feedback. This is how, with the suggestion of Kim Se-han, anonymous player 48, GM Arcadis failed to interfere with the Korean server for some time. As a reward after defeating the raid boss, Se-han receives the Code of Gungi, and after reading through its description, he realizes that Gungi had reached its final form right before Jisoo finished it off. He is already surprised to know this when Jisoo shows that she's received the Dark Gem of Sacred Dissonance in her inventory. After looking at it, Se-han's astonishment grows even more, and he plans about how they can make an extremely powerful weapon out of this. However, he realizes that they're missing some of the necessary material, but he still feels thankful to Arcadis for this. Jisoo offers her reward to Se-han, saying that she only finished the raid boss off at the end while he did all the work, but he refuses to take it, telling her she should keep it since it can come in handy when she eventually finds some good materials. He further says to her that gold rank is a good enough reward for him since a lot of players got involved too. When Jisoo claims that she's also acquired gold rank, Dongguan comes to them and reveals that he has received a silver rank. They fail to believe how Dongguan managed to get a silver rank when he was only running away the whole time, so he reminds them how he secured the area for a fight by evacuating everyone. Han Jisoo questions Kim Se-ha if her involvement in the fight lowered his rank to gold, but he refuses, saying that if she hadn't been involved, the fight would have gone on much longer. He then asks Dongguan if he has anything to do, to which Dongguan affirms. He thinks how it would have been better if Dongguan had stayed with Yongyun but allows him anyway with a warning. Before leaving for Seoul, Jisoo expresses her worries about her mother's whereabouts. This makes Se-han wonder why her mother didn't reveal her location to Jisoo. Se-han then looks at Jisoo and wonders what would have become of her had he not killed her in her previous life. Thus, he sees her as his milestone since she represents the possibility of change in destinies. A few men drag little kids with them as the kids are tied to each other like animals and cry. The men wonder if their higher-ups asked for children to get their soul and blood since the higher-ups are demons. Suddenly, John Shin arrives there in order to find someone who intruded into his area. When asked about who he is, Shinjon claims that he doesn't know that. Therefore, he's decided to kill everyone there. Mina and Linda are walking by the streets while carrying grocery bags. When Taylor thanks Mina for enabling them to afford more with their points, Mina also flaunts her gold rating. However, she secretly admits that it became possible because of the grimoire that Kim Se-han had given her. Suddenly, someone creeps up to Mina from behind, and with the help of Taylor, Mina manages to dodge the attack of the man. She then slices the man's weapon into too by transforming her hand into a blade and punches his face with a metal fist. The man falls to the ground, and his partner realizes that the kids are not ordinary. Thus, he calls out all of their gang members out of the alleys to attack the girls together. Out of nowhere, the eyes of the first man change, and Mina wonders if he's a humanoid monster. However, Mina stays confident and transforms her arms into that of a mantis. When she starts to slice off their weapons with a single swing of her arms, one of the men commands the other to go after Taylor. The men run towards Taylor, but she manages to dodge their attack. Minsu feels relieved to see that and runs towards the men to finish them off. However, the men quickly escape the place. After feeling relieved about the situation, Mina notices that the blood flowing from the injured or dead gangsters is black. She feels suspicious about it, so she decides to discuss it with Kim Si-han later when he returns. After Kim Si-han has come back, Lee Mia informs him about how she and Lynn Taylor got ambushed by some suspicious thugs. He thinks through the situation and realizes that their dark blood signifies that they were the servants of the demon, which means they belonged to the Dark Sky clan. This makes him wonder why they're wasting their time around instead of growing their strength, and he questions himself if this is because Kim Ju-won is gone now. Kim Se-han thinks about how the Dark Sky clan couldn't have had any authority over Seoul because of Kim Ju-won's guild, the Sins, if things were to go exactly like the previous life. However, since the Sins aren't here, the Dark Sky clan has gained influence, and Kim Si-han has unintentionally accelerated the demon's advancement in Seoul. When Lynn Taylor asks Kim Si-han about whether he knows who those people could be, he affirms. Before answering, he looks around at Mr. Taylor and gets surprised by his worried expression in concern for his daughter, Lynn Taylor. He then informs the girls that those thugs were most probably associated with a demon. However, he claims that he isn't aware of their whereabouts since he never got to handle them in his previous playthrough. Jisoo steps forward and confesses about knowing where those thugs might be. She reminds Se-han about her third main quest, which she found quite difficult to clear, and he quickly remembers it since he had to defeat Karas at that time. She continues that she also met a dark-blooded person there. This makes him realize that the situation is quite serious now, and he asks her to lead him there. Se-han arrives at Hwagok, in the Gangseo district of Seoul, and finds it strange to see businesses reopening already. He approaches a shop owner and asks him if there had been any cases of child kidnapping here. The calm and composed man suddenly gets scared and hesitant after hearing Se-han's question, and walks away after denying any such thing happened. After some tries, a man finally agrees to talk inside his shop when Se-han shows him a picture of Jisoo and asks him about it. The man informs us that the guild wasn't from here, and the lady in the picture completely annihilated the original organization of this area, making it easier for the outside guild to take over. The man further reveals that those people threatened them to stay quiet, or else they'd lose their business. After hearing the whole thing, Se-han realizes the whole situation, and also that those people must be kidnapping children for the Mask of Anguish. Initially, the gods used to use the world as their game, but now the demons have also reached a supernatural level of power to treat this world as their game. The gods only appoint up to a maximum of 2 avatars in order to maintain their control over them, and pay a lot of attention to each of their avatars, resulting in their frequent intervention. However, the demons are opposite to the gods since they share their power with multiple contractors and have a large group of their servants, and sometimes even a whole guild. Contrary to gods, the demons don't care about the contractor's talent, abilities, or compatibility with their power, and only care about the desire for power and susceptibility to temptation that their contractor holds. In other words, they only care about how well their servants will abide by their commands. Since this game is much more than just entertainment for the demons, and all their interests are against the well-being of humans, it signifies how they're after the Mask of Anguish. The Mask of Anguish is made from the flesh of a demon infused with misery, and the one who owns it is the 27th ranking demon, Nevaroth. He gains his strength through sadness and the life essence of humans, and converts them into points for him to use in order to grow the power of the mask. Se-han leaves the shop and decides to demolish the Dark Sky clan. He transforms into a crow and starts searching the white building where he was supposed to find the demon servants, as told by the shop owner. However, he finds out that all the buildings are white, and everyone has dark hair and dark eyes. Since he finds it hard to find those men, he goes to another place to get the boss. Se-han beats down several men of the Dark Sky Guild when the other men appear, asking him if he's from the Dark Moon Guild. However, he juggles his daggers, telling them to be prepared to die at his hands. Using the Eye of the Crows, he then summons a large group of crows that start confusing the men while he kills the men one after another. When the other men start to attack back, Se-han uses the Shadow Rush technique and dodges the attack. He wonders where the kidnapped children are but decides to go look for them after he has taken care of all of these servants of the Nevaroth here. Se-han manages to wipe them out and starts to look for the kidnapped children. When he opens the door of the room in which the kidnapped kids are, one of them asks him if he is going to take them as well to that one place. Oblivious about the kid's question, he asks the kid what place he is talking about. The kid claims that they promised to turn these kids into players. Se-han realizes that those gang members have manipulated these kids and clarifies that no human can turn into a player, nor does a human have the power to turn them into a player. When the kid tries to argue about seeing other kids turning into players, Se-han tells him that they must have already been players. This offends the kid, and when he demands that Se-han let them go if he cannot keep his promise, he tells them that he was already here to free them. After freeing the kids, he decides to investigate the interior of the building, and first goes to the 7th floor to see if there's a manager there. Shin Hwan is sitting in a room with a cage in front of him and gets annoyed at the loud noise. Suddenly a man comes to him and notifies him that their Hwagok branch has been annihilated. After asking about who it was, the man explains that the cameras were blocked by crows, but it was a single man dressed in black. Hwan wonders if it was a servant of another demon but couldn't understand who it could be. He then goes to the 5th floor to his boss, Gang Cheonu. Cheonu orders him to take care of the matter and advises him not to let his guard down. town. Hwan gets on his way while being confident in the fact that Neveroth calls him the strangest contractor of all. Thus, even though he acknowledges the great strength of the man who killed his gang members, he marches forward to finish him off. Sehan looks through some documents and gets to know that the Dark Sky Guild's base is in the Hwan neighborhood of Incheon. He then notices the observing eyes floating around of the gods and feels uncomfortable because of their presence. Suddenly, he notices that the shining golden eye is still following him and wonders if it belongs to the witch. However, he thinks that she would have sent him an avatar invitation by now, just like she did in the previous playthrough, if it had been really hers. Therefore, he decides to ignore it and starts thinking about how to handle the guild members since there are going to be a lot more than there were in Hwagok. After getting challenged by one of the observing eyes, he goes on his journey to first rescue the kidnapped children from the basement of the Incheon branch, because he knows that they must be using the children to awaken the Mask of Anguish. When Sehan arrives there, he peeks from behind a wall and sees some men dragging out dead children from the basement room. They talk about why the kids are dying much faster than they were expected to, and confusedly ask each other about what to do with the dead bodies since it is usually Shin Hwan who takes care of them. Sehan hears the name Shin Juan and wonders if there was someone by this name in his previous playthrough. After realizing that he couldn't get much information from behind the wall, he reveals himself to the men, who mistake him for a new guy from his black clothes. Thus, they tell him to help them out in taking care of the bodies, but Sehan wastes no time in slicing off their throats. When Sehan goes to the dead body, he finds it strange to find the dead girl having a peaceful expression. He recalls how the Mask of Anguish absorbs the sadness of its victim, which results in the victim's miserable end. He also finds the power accumulated in the mask much smaller than it technically should be. Suddenly, Sehan notices a stasis-inducing gas orb, which indicates that somebody used their item here. He wonders who it could have been to try to rescue the children, but decides to save the children first. Gang Cheonu flares up in anger when he gets to know that Hwan hasn't found the wanted man yet. Nevertheless, he decides to ask for more time from Neveroth to again gather the children. He thinks this person is a demon's servant, judging by his described dressing and the presence of crows, but he realizes that no one weaker than Hwan can face him. This makes Cheonu's informer doubt Hwan, and he discusses it with Cheonu as well, but he denies any such claims. Suddenly, Cheonu notices a large swarm of crows outside his window, which breaks the glass of the window and enters inside. Cheonu's informer tells him about the bombs attached to each crow foot. However, by the time they spot it, the whole building explodes along with the bombs. Hwan is on his bike when he gets to know that the base has been attacked. Neveroth tells him that the whole building's been exploded with the mask buried beneath it, even though they thought that the player would take it away as well along with the children. Suddenly, Neveroth says that the crow constellation was recently replaced when someone killed the previous crow constellation and inherited its power, because the seat of the constellation is still empty since the killer isn't ready to take it yet. When asked by Hwan whether he knows who the killer is, Neveroth affirms, saying that he's one of the most famous players. However, the man claims that he can't access the gods' forums as a demon. Hwan gathers the information about the player, and knowing that he won't show himself to Hwan for a fight, he decides to make a situation where the player has no other option than to fight. Hwan asks Neveroth to tell him the location of the player's teammates, but Neveroth suggests he rather take the mask from their base before, in order to ensure his victory against the powerful player. Neveroth then helps Hwan get the mask and leads him to the player, Sehan's teammate's doorstep. Mina looks at the pouring rain and dries her hair, commenting how heavily it is raining. Lin comes around offering her some hot tea. Mina thanks her and asks if she knows where Jisoo is. Lin tells her that she is still outside. Mina says that Jisoo must be on the lookout even in the rain. Taylor sighs, saying that he really can't figure out these abilities. Mina says that it's as easy as using his hands. Taylor sighs again, saying that he still can't get it. Mina looks at him with determination, saying that she will help him understand it. Suddenly, Lin breaks a plate as she stares in front of the window. Mina asks if she is hurt somewhere or was she scared of the lightning. Lin trembles, saying that something terrible is approaching them as dark shadows come looming over their door. Just as their door opens, Hwan stands there. Mina thinks, asking herself if he is a friend of Sehan, but he hits her in the face. Mina stands in a fighting stance, thinking who that could be. He hits her again as Mina thinks how it still hurts even after she covered herself with mithril. He moves towards her, telling her to stay put so he can end it quickly for her. Mina transforms into her different form and attacks him, but he dodges them. Just as he was about to hit her, Taylor blocks his punch, taunts him, saying that it looks like he knows how to fight, that it's a shame because he must have been pretty strong before the game began. Hwan takes his position and says that he's in a hurry because they all need to die. Taylor laughs, saying that it's not happening because he has a daughter he has to take care of, and they both start fighting each other. At the Dark Sky clan, the crow admires the bomb that he made, thinking how summoning crows gave him a slight headache. He thinks about how others can retrieve the mask themselves. Just as the eye keeps bothering him, he moves towards it, asking what's wrong. The eye tells him that her avatar is in danger. Hwan stands in silence now looking at Mina's and Taylor's unconscious bodies. He thinks how this could have gone wrong if their stats were any higher. He sees Lin crying over Taylor, telling her dad to wake up, as he's reminded of his younger self. He quickly dismisses the thoughts as the voice interrupts him, telling him to not kill the kid. The voice tells him that she has an incredible amount of potential, and magic this pure is an excellent offering. He asks if he can do whatever he wants with the others, and upon a yes, he tells Lin to follow him. As Lin looks reluctant, he says that it's the only way she can keep her dad and Mina alive. Lin stands up looking at her dad and moves towards Hwan to go with him to spare their lives. He quickly takes her out by hitting her head from behind and holding her limp body, and just as he was about to move away with her, Jisoo attacks him with a hatchet. He asks if she also lives with them, to which Jisoo replies with another attack, shocking Hwan at her speed. He thinks she is faster than him. Hwan attacks her wrist, but she dodges it as he thinks that her wrist should have been broken. He thinks how inhuman she is. Jisoo asks why he's moving so weirdly while dodging her attacks as he replies that her movements are weirder to him. He tells her that it's a boxing move sway, as Jisoo crackles her neck and takes a boxing stance. Hwan looks at her and clicks his tongue getting into position too, saying how it's annoying him. Jisoo throws him a punch as Hwan dodges it with equal speed. He tries to copy her attack as she dodges just barely. Hwan snickers, calculating that Jisoo just knows how to aim for the head, but since she's a natural, this could get dangerous. He thinks of finishing the fight with a final blow as he throws a direct punch at her. Jisoo blocks it while doing the same. He staggers, thinking how fast she did the trick. He thinks that it's better to leave before things get more complicated, as Jisoo stumbles from her position, and Hwan lets out a disappointed groan. Hwan gets on his bike, taking Lin with him, but thinks how ridiculous it is that Jisoo is trailing behind him with such speed while he is on a bike, and how she's getting faster with each passing second. Just as Jisoo was about to catch on, he puts on the gears and gets out. The voice taunts him, saying this is the last time he has decided to help Hwan, since Jisoo can't be allowed to ruin the main course. He gets to the Incheon port as the voice tells him that crows will be getting there soon. Hwan thinks about Taylor, Mina, and Lin and how they all must be connected. Then he thinks of Jisoo. The voice of the demon taunts him again, telling him to wear a mask. He tells him that he's helping Hwan just because he doesn't want to find another pawn, and he'll terminate their contract as soon as he fails. Hwan tells the demon that he'll make his decision once he sees the guy. Just then, the crow appears as Hwan thinks he has seen him somewhere in an MMA fighting ring, so he must be a fighter. The crow asks why he kidnapped the child, to which Hwan tells him that it was the best way to get him out. The crow asks if it's because of what he did to the Dark Sky clan, to which Hwan nods, and says that he has things to settle with him, sensing the strong aura coming from him. The crow tells him that his friends were ambushed by the servants of a demon before, so he decided to get rid of everything associated with the demons before they can cause a problem. Hwan gets into his fighting position. The crow notices how his hands transformed, thinking if he can modify his body parts just like this. As they start their one-on-one combat, both of them fight each other throwing punches, not including the weapons, but suddenly the crow launches an unplanned attack for Hwan and breaks his hand as the demon scolds him for not wearing a mask. He regrets trusting a mortal again. Hwan wonders if he's even worthy of wearing the mask of anguish. The demon gets angry, saying if he can't accept it, then he'll make him wear it by force. The demon asks if he knows the difference between a contract with a demon and a god. Just then, Hwan starts trembling as the demon tells him that demons can force their will upon them. Hwan wears the mask of anguish even against his will as the demon declares that it was getting boring seeing him fight like a weakling. He lets out a scream as the mask wears itself on him, and the crow thinks how this can be a problem. He thinks how Hwan's stats could be similar to his current ones, and now that he's wearing the mask that always bugs him. He quickly goes to Lin and holds her tight, looking at Hwan, who laughs as the mask takes control over him, saying how good it feels to control. The mask introduces himself as the 27th ranking demon, Neveroth. Neveroth laughs, saying that it's quite fun to take control of things himself like this. The crow finally takes his sword out, directly warning him to bring it on already because he doesn't want Lin to wait in the rain for too long. Neveroth calls him an arrogant mortal and asks if it's true that he has defeated Karis, because that couldn't be true. He argues, saying it would be impossible for him to defeat a constellation with that power level. As Hwan launches at him, the crow thinks that the mask isn't fully complete yet, but still, the sheer strength of the mask is quite impressive. The crow moves towards him. They both fall into back and forth swinging and dodging attacks. The crow thinks how he can easily deal with these movements. The crow somehow gets his sword close to Hwan's neck, but the sword breaks into pieces upon touch. Neveroth laughs, praising that he is quite strong for a human, then claws at him, saying he still can't outmatch a demon. The crow quickly notices how Neveroth's movements actually became slower than before. Noticing that, he strikes again as Hwan stumbles back. The crow understands that if that is the case, then he is just a punching bag right now. He thinks how Neveroth can prevent the body from being sliced with his powers, but he can also feel the pain. The crow stops, seeing Neveroth still laughing. He thinks about how his rank in the ladder has some meaning. Neveroth says that he wasn't so arrogant for nothing, so he can fight pretty well. As he was about to complete his sentence, he plops on the ground as the demon confusingly asks what's happening, saying that he can't move. Just then, Hwan says that he must have been beaten pretty badly within the same body. Neveroth asks how he can still talk like this. Hwan replies that his mind has become clear after getting beaten this badly. Neveroth says that he can still take control as long as he's wearing the mask. Hwan exhales and smashes his face on the ground with full force. The crow looks at the scene, thinking if he regained his consciousness, then he's resisting the demon's mind control. He thinks how unusual this sight is. The demon keeps screaming, taunting if Hwan thinks he can break the mask. A demon's artifact can only be destroyed by the demon itself, an entity of an equal or greater status, or the contractor of the demon. The demon screams, asking if he knows that he is basically terminating their contract by destroying the demon artifact. Hwan grabs the mask and pulls on it. He says that he knows he was planning to abandon him anyway, so he will throw him away first before he does it. Hwan faces the crow as the crow asks if he's still planning to fight with him. He says that the demon had nothing to do with their fight. The crow thinks how he still wants to avenge his boss, whose face he can't even remember. Hwan rejoices how his stats are still the same after ripping the mask. Hwan notices how he can see the moves super clearly now as he dodges the attacks, but the crow still manages to throw him off and says that luck wasn't on his side. Hwan falls down from the sky and lands in water, floating on it lightly. The crow laughs, saying that he must be really lucky then. Hwan opens his eyes, thinking how he can still be alive after the fall, just as someone hovers over him. He looks at a girl holding an umbrella, welcoming him back. She tells him that he piqued her interest. He asks who she is, to which she replies that she is one of the 7 prime demons of hell, the demon Azazel. Meanwhile, in some building in Gangnam, Seoul, the Genesis Guildmaster Park holds a meeting to discuss an alliance with the Outrising Guildmaster Gang and the Crimson Spider Lily Guildmaster Lee. Park proposes an alliance with Gang because of the Uprising's power struggle with the waning crescent. However, Gang finds Park's guild a greater threat to him. Meanwhile, Lee grows tired of the quarreling between Gang and Sehan. Gang grows frustrated, but Park calms him down. Other than the alliance, Park gathered the 2 guildmasters to discuss the main quest. A lot of time has passed since the update, and there's no sign of a main quest, but he feels that there have been hints of it. He believes that the numerous dungeons that have spawned recently are hinting towards their next main quest. Seeing how the guilds have been fighting more frequently over the increase in dungeons, Park thinks that the next main quest will be a competition between guilds over the dungeons. Therefore, he suggests not a full-fledged alliance but merely a truce so that they don't fight each other. Players can form guilds after the 4th main quest. Then they can purchase guild houses in the central area of a city to mark them as safe zones. Park's initial plan was to create his guild later on, and since the members were already grabbing too much attention from the gods, his original plan was to join another guild as a mercenary. However, meeting John Shin changed his plan, and Park realized he needed a safe zone to protect himself from intruders and observers. Meanwhile, Sehan's friends are surprised to see the tall building. Sehan tells them about his initial plan of purchasing it sometime later, but he tells them it'll be good for them to stay away from the observers. They all head inside the building to discuss the details. As they walk inside, Sehan notices that Jisoo's been down lately. Jisoo tells him she's upset that she failed to protect everyone. The incident reminded Jisoo of her shortcomings, and she feels that she needs to learn more techniques instead of only relying on her stats and abilities. Sehan is surprised to see Jisoo wanting to be stronger than she is now. However, the encounter with John Shin struck something in him. Sehan didn't chase John Shin because the ground was blown away, but something intervened to nullify his attack against John Shin. Sehan believes only a demon could have intervened directly like that, and if the demon was strong enough to cancel his attacks, it might be one of the 7 deadly demons of the Dark Realm. Mina asks Sehan when the next main quest will begin, and Sehan tells her he'll tell them once everyone gathers. After everyone gathers, Sehan tells them about the competition. He addresses their concerns that they're right to think that the increasing number of dungeons isn't enough proof to support his theory. Sehan tells them about the dungeon imprint. After a dungeon has been imprinted, only the associated group can enter it. Right now, there's no restriction on the dungeon's entry, but Sehan believes that could change soon. For that, it would be advantageous for them to conquer as many dungeons as possible. Besides, the dungeons guarantee a stable supply of resources, points, and experience for the players to grow, which is why it could be a great opportunity for a guild to dominate Seoul. This is a fierce competition, and several guilds have been created in Seoul already. Sehan has gathered everyone to talk about their participation in the guild. Everyone agrees to join Sehan's guild except for Luke and Lin. They believe they're not strong enough to participate. However, Sehan shows them he'd very much like to have them. He knows Lin is the most talented player to exist right now, and Luke is also suited to be a god's chosen avatar, and he even became the strongest player in the last playthrough, even if temporarily. Luke agrees to follow Sehan since he considers Sehan a hero. Luke has always wanted to be a hero himself, but he feels that he's already failed by losing once. Mina asks Sehan if she can decide the name of the guild if he hasn't already, but Sehan tells her that he's already decided already, and it's called Deicide, the Destroyer of the Gods. Sue stands in the basement of the Deicide headquarters, and he's impressed by the smell of the new building scent. Meanwhile, Sehan and Jisoo continue training in the gym. As he goes hand in hand with Jisoo, he realizes there's nothing modest about her killing intent. He can feel it even though she's suppressing herself, and her control over it is impressive. Jisoo continues exchanging blows until Sehan finds himself cornered against a wall. Jisoo swings a punch with Sehan having nowhere to escape. Jisoo drives her punch into the wall and decides to end the training there. Jisoo couldn't hit Sehan even once, which makes her wonder where he learned to fight. Sehan wonders why she's asking that question now when she's seen him fight so many times. But Jisoo believes seeing and actually fighting are two different things. However, Jisoo now understands how she should be moving. Suddenly, Mina comes running into the training gym. Sehan decides to have her spar with Jisoo later and asks her why she's here. Mina tells him that the egg incubator was making a weird trumpet noise. Sehan grins in happiness as he realizes the Kirin's fruit is finally hatching. Sehan and Mina stand waiting for the egg to hatch when suddenly, the system notifies them that the egg has hatched. With the birth of the first Kirin child, Sehan unlocks the achievement of being a beast tamer. Mina sees the little baby in front of her and picks him up instantly. A Kirin child is born with the combination of a prodigy's blood and the mythical powers of a Kirin. Within a month, a Kirin child grows to look like a teenager, and after that, they grow up like a regular human until reaching their 20s. However, despite their kind-hearted nature, a Kirin child is prone to corruption, and their lives are influenced by their upbringing. Mina grows very protective of the little baby. She decides to name the little girl Bexel because she's white as snow. As she leaves to show the baby to everyone, Sehan decides it's best to leave her to Mina for now. Meanwhile, Sehan informs everyone that they need to keep in mind the different scoring system for each dungeon. In this dungeon race, no one can participate if they're not a part of a guild. The higher they place, the better rewards they achieve, and the number of points depends on the dungeon they imprint. Jisoo thinks it would be hard for their small guild to compete, but Sehan doesn't plan to occupy all the dungeons. He only wants to focus on the dungeons that are worth a high amount of points. However, Mina wonders how Sehan can tell which dungeons are worth more, because when she infiltrated the 3 major guilds that used to occupy these dungeons, she found out that even they don't know about them. Mina only learned that the Genesis was the only guild doing something, and they were only analyzing the dungeon's pattern. Sehan agrees there's a pattern in the dungeon spawning. He shows his team the map of recent dungeon spawns that he checked out with his crows over the week. Luke doesn't believe the map alone could tell the worth, but Sehan assures him they have all the information needed. Sehan tells him they're spawning in the constellation pattern. He points towards Lyre and the herdsman but tells them they're only worth 3 points maximum. The hint is that the upcoming quests will be constellation related, so if they want the highest rewards, Sehan believes they should go towards the dungeon located at the brightest star of the zodiac, and it should be worth 10 points. Sehan believes the most important person in this quest will be Mina, but he doesn't explain why. He chooses Changgu to travel with him and tells Jisoo to keep fighting with other players to a minimum. As for the bad guys, Sehan leaves it to Jisoo, but he tells her to avoid gathering too much attention. Suddenly Sehan receives a message, and he realizes it's from the one who had him as their avatar in his previous playthrough, the Witch of Dreams. The players keep chatting enthusiastically about the contest when the anonymous person joins their chat to give them information about the dungeons. The Norse beauty offers to let the Foreseer's avatar into her guild, but the anonymous person declines. He proceeds to tell them about the Gangnam region dungeons and tells them they'll be worth a lot of points. The Norse beauty claims the dungeons for herself, and the other guy asks about some in Gangseo. The anonymous user plans to give them information about dungeons with 3 to 5 points and occasionally drop in a 10-point dungeon to gain their trust. However, he feels that Tyr has him figured out from how he's only showing interest in 12 Zodiac dungeons. The anonymous person realizes that it means the Genesis Guildmaster knows everything too. After dropping all the information, Sehan decides to take care of the message sent by the Witch of Dreams. Each god is given 10 messages to send to players every month. It's unlikely for a god to spend the limited messages on an ordinary player like Sehan, and he's never been messaged like this in his previous life before. Seihan is surprised to see the goddess message him continuously. The goddess disagrees with other gods that Seihan is already chosen. She knows his power is purely human and is impressed by that. She invites Seihan as her avatar and promises to make him the champion. Seihan is relieved to know that she doesn't have any memories of his past life, but he doesn't wish to repeat that ending and refuses the goddess's offer. The goddess respects Seihan's choice but offers to always help him if he needs it. Meanwhile, Mina stands waiting because Seihan asked her to hide herself by the gate. She sees so many people gather around the dungeon, which makes her realize that Seihan was right. Mina transforms into a fly and sticks to the mercenaries preparing to enter the dungeon. They gather into a formation and leave a row behind to watch out for the other guilds and jump through the gate. The mercenaries remind each other to be cautious as they enter the dungeon. Mina flies to the end of the dungeon and transforms back into her human form. She takes out the bombs and puts down a metal pipe. Mina sticks the bombs down to the cave walls and triggers them. A huge explosion goes off, causing the walls to cave in and block the way while the metal pipe secures her exit. Mina now only needs to follow the trail and finish the dungeon. Meanwhile, in another area, a group of people cheer on finding the dungeon gate. They hesitate to enter, worried that the major guilds might see them, but their leader tells them no one would enter this area. The leader is excited that he might even get a promotion for finding the dungeon. Suddenly, Jisoo walks in and is surprised to see the dungeon surrounded by people. One of the guys tells his master that he let her in. The master grins mischievously and orders his men to hold her. As the men hold Jisoo, they start trembling in fear, realizing they can't even make her move. Jisoo recognizes the moon tattoo on their arms and realizes they belong to the guild, the Waning Crescent. She counts 34 of their people. Their faces turn pale in fear as Jisoo's eyes turn red with killing intent. Meanwhile, Park learns that he's in second place, as he planned. His plan is to let the Outrising take the lead for a week, and then create a lead of their own. He realizes that the Outrising and the Crimson Spider Lily don't know about the constellation pattern. However, Deicide is tied with their guild, and not even God knows anything about them. Seeing how Deicide is in second place, Park realizes that they must be aware of the constellation patterns too, and it's better if he keeps an eye out for them. Seihan, on the other hand, continues observing his plans. The small dungeons are being taken by the 3 big guilds, and Mina has managed to score them 2 high-point dungeons, while Jisoo has scored a 5-point one as well. This puts Deicide at 25 points, and Taylor and Changu seem to be doing fine as well. Meanwhile, Lin walks in on Seihan, asking to hold Bexel, but Seihan tells her he's too heavy for her right now. She then asks him to train her the way he did Jisoo, but Seihan refuses and tells her that understanding herself is her first step. Lin doesn't understand what Seihan means, but the truth is normal training isn't suitable for Lin. She gets stronger just by watching their battles, and she has to be aware of that before training. Bexel suddenly releases bubbles, which make Lin feel refreshed all of a sudden. Bexel was born only 2 days ago, and she's already using magic. Bexel sneezes and releases a laser out of her horn, which surprises Seihan because he has never seen a Kirin do that before. Seihan and Changu start their travels, and Seihan believes the Genesis should be trying to contact them soon. He believes they would contact first because the Genesis believe themselves to be the only ones to know about the constellation pattern, and Deicide taking all high-point dungeons must have caught their attention. However, Seihan doesn't plan to meet them just yet. Changu worries that he's not the right choice right now because Seihan could find someone better for his travels, but Seihan assures him that's good, and anyone better than him would probably be chosen as an avatar. Seihan sees his party window and realizes he can now accept another party member and considers Jisoo since she has grown strong now. Seihan and Changu continue their journey before Mina gets angry at them for being lazy. However, Changu is surprised because he thought Seihan would be going only for 10-pointer dungeons, and this one is 5 points. Seihan tells him all the high-pointer dungeons are being monitored by the Genesis, and a small point reward isn't bad since the points for monsters don't differ a lot. They reach the dungeon gate, and Seihan tells Changu to put away his weapons because he wants to test the A-rank equipment he made with the Code of the Night and the Gungi hide. Meanwhile, the people gather around to see the guild ranking. They're surprised to see Deicide, a guild no one knows anything about, ranking first. Park, Gang, and Lee gather again to discuss their strategies. Park tells them that Deicide has been taking all of their dungeons. However, they have no witnesses to support their suspicions. They feel as if they're being watched. Gang also suspects that a man has been tailing them recently, but they can't find him. Park assumes it must be a member of Deicide trying to collect information. However, Gang is furious that the Genesis is at the top of the leaderboards because the Outrising was leading by 20 points. Park pretends to play dumb and tells him they've just been lucky that the dungeons they imprint happen to be worth a lot of points. He suggests focusing their attention on Deicide because it will be embarrassing if the 3 guilds keep up like this. Park tells them they have only 2 weeks until the quest ends. He suggests stopping dungeon hunting and figuring out Deicide's associates while guarding the rest of the dungeons by their respective guild members. However, Lee points out that that's what she's been doing, but Deicide has still been robbing them. Park informs them that Deicide has been going for low-point dungeons as well, while they guard only the high-point ones. Lee and Gang agree with Park that this is the right time to hunt for Deicide, so they decide to stop dungeon hunting for now. In exchange, Park promises to find Deicide. Both Gang and Lee agree to halt their dungeon hunt, and in exchange, Park promises to find Deicide. Meanwhile, Seihan continues observing the dungeons and seeing the active guards. He knows the guildmasters are now more interested in finding him. He decides to fulfill their wishes and pay them a visit. Seihan stands outside the Genesis's safe zone. With all the guards patrolling the dungeons, it's easier for him to get in. He walks inside to find someone to lead him to the guildmaster. Seihan uses his shadow rush to hide himself and sneaks up on Gaeun Hong. However, Gaeun sees him before he can reach her. She swings her sword but Seihan blocks it. Seihan tries to introduce himself, but Gaeun refuses to hear him out and starts swinging her sword. As Gaeun swings her sword, Seihan dodges it with ease. She now realizes he's no ordinary intruder. Seihan insists on talking it out. Gaeun drops her sword, revealing another weapon that leaves Seihan surprised. He's surprised surprised to see a whip sword in her hand. Gaehan continues attacking with her whip sword, but Seihan keeps dodging. He throws her sword at her to disarm her, but Gaehan draws out her dagger. Seihan is surprised to see her carry so many weapons. After a while of exchanging blows, Gaehan falls to her knees, accepting her defeat. Seihan tells her he's only here to talk with her guildmaster as a representative of the guild Deicide. Gaehan is surprised with the revelation, and decides to take Seihan to her guildmaster. Seihan is amazed at how easily Gaehan led him to her guildmaster. Park refuses to believe Sehun that he's from Deicide, so Sehun tells him about the constellation. Park is surprised. He knows very few people know about this secret, and tells Sehun to take a seat. Park tells Gaehan to rest. Gaehan insists on staying, but Park insists, so she leaves. After a brief small talk, Park asks Seihan the reason behind his visit. Seihan tells him he's the one who invited them. Seeing as Seihan knows about the constellation pattern, Park assumes that Seihan is here to ask them to give up their control over the dungeons. However, Seihan prefers that they control the dungeon but asks Park to keep the meeting a secret because others might act inappropriately. Park wonders why Seihan wants them to control the dungeons. Seihan shows him a map and tells him to stay away from the 2 dungeons in Seoul and 16 others in the area at all costs. Park finds the warning a threat, but then he notices the Scorpius pattern. Seihan tells him that someone planted bombs inside these dungeons, and now the fragments of the vicious Scorpius are scattered throughout the dungeons, and even Seihan himself isn't sure where the bombs are located. Without mentioning the details, Seihan tells Park that there's a monster inside the Scorpius dungeons that could turn Seoul into a bloodbath. Park refuses to believe Seihan and asks for evidence. Seihan offers Park some reliable information. Seihan doesn't wish to let the incident of his past life repeat again, and for that he has to gain Park's trust here. Of all the events that Seihan experienced in his previous playthrough, this was the most diabolical, and he has to avoid it at all costs. Seihan doesn't know exactly how it all began. When an unknown guild jumped into the dungeons, the monsters broke free to spread their nightmare. Seihan assumes the publishers created them as entertainment for gods. But once the scorpions consumed all the players' mana, they came out onto the surface, and that's how the destruction began. 2 scorpions emerged from the star pieces of Antares and within only a week annihilated a third of Seoul. The incident devastated the Outrising and the Crimson Tiger Lily, and Genesis had to reorganize their groups. The disaster withered the growth rate of players in Seoul by a lot, and eventually the whole of Korea was caught in it. This is why Seihan has to prevent it from happening again. Hopefully, 2 of the 18 dungeons that represent Scorpius are still the triggering conditions of the event. Park didn't fully trust Seihan's words until he received a message from his scouts confirming the mithril deposit that he mentioned. Park still wonders how Seihan knew about it and what his position is within Deicide. However, seeing that it's mithril and Seihan is willing to give away the deposit, Park wonders if they have something better. Seihan realizes that Park is having difficulty understanding the situation, but in reality, Deicide already has 2 mithril ores and a refined iron deposit, so it's not a big loss for him. Park realizes that stopping these creatures should be the #1 priority, but Seihan tells him that's exactly why he wants him to keep surveilling the dungeons for a while. Park suggests informing other guilds about the danger, but Seihan tells him that the others wouldn't just believe him and follow the orders. Park then asks Seihan if he already knew that the other guilds would control the dungeons. Seihan tells him that he had alternatives if they hadn't done that. Seeing how confident Seihan is in having different plans, Park wonders if it's arrogance or confidence. But seeing Seihan's power, Park decides to trust him because he knows if Seihan can't stop it, then the others don't stand a chance. Park offers his help to Seihan whenever needed to pay off their debt for the mithril deposit, and Seihan takes his leave. Park is left surprised seeing Seihan vanish all of a sudden. He realizes that Seihan could assassinate anyone if he wanted. Meanwhile, Seihan reaches Deicide headquarters. The scorpions are dangerous, but not as dangerous as a sentinel. With proper preparations, Seihan believes he could stop them. He tries the mask that Seo made. It's a special gas mask made from a combination of mithril and 8 other materials. It allows the user to breathe freely, even in the most toxic gases. Seihan finds the masks perfect, and for now Seo has made 5. Seihan offers to buy something for Seo as a reward, but Seo tells him that he's already satisfied with the workshop. However, seeing as Seihan is the one benefiting from this workshop, he decides to get him a gift later. Seihan is also very satisfied with the vicious coat of the night that Seo made him. Its stats are all A-ranked, and it has the wings of the Gungi ability. However, Seo wonders why Seihan is coating all his equipment with mithril, even though refined iron is stronger. Seihan tells him that it's because of the properties of mithril. He doesn't explain much because he knows Seo can figure out the rest. Seo wonders if he's going alone this time, but Seihan tells him that he can't because there's not enough time. The system could intervene at any moment, so they need to be fast, and Seihan decides that it's time. Mina and Seihan gather to check out the dungeons. Seihan tells Mina that they won't have to go through all the dungeons because he'll tell them which ones to visit. He asks Luke to stand guard for the other players and hands him over a bracelet that he got for clearing a dungeon. Luke tries to check the effects, but since the bracelet is under Seihan's ownership, it's locked. Seihan begins searching with his crows and finds the powers of stars at the 5th and 12th dungeons. Seihan realizes that one of the dungeons hasn't fully formed its gate yet. He believes it must be the last dungeon and where the brightest star of Scorpius must be. The gate will take a couple of days to fully form, so Seihan suggests leaving it alone for now. They take a look inside the dungeon in front of them first and find it filled with people. Mina could transform and enter, but she wonders what the rest will do. Seihan tells her he'll take care of them before going. Mina is surprised by the evil expression on Seihan's face. Jisoo offers to do it. She only used to go for the bad guys, but she's ready to do it in a hurry right now. Seihan tells Jisoo to always think before killing, even when necessary. He knows Jisoo is dangerous right now. She had been suppressing the Celestial Slayer's powers up to this point, but Seihan feels she has changed now. So Seihan prepares to handle it himself. Seihan sweeps through the soldiers quickly, which leaves Mina surprised. They all head inside the dungeon, and although it looks normal, Seihan suggests wearing masks. Changu realizes the monsters in this dungeon must be special if they need these precautions. Meanwhile, at the entrance of the 18th dungeon, Luke continues observing the entrance like Seihan told him to. Surprisingly, Luke receives a message from the goddess, which raises concern for him. The dungeon's formation suddenly starts accelerating. Luke realizes it must mean the publisher or GM might have intervened as Seihan predicted. He thinks about informing Seihan, but then the dungeon grabs his attention. Its unique appearance makes him assume this dungeon must be 10 points. The dungeon's appearance catches Gang's attention too. He starts to get greedy. Although his people warn him against breaking the promise, Gang thinks one dungeon is not a problem. Gang starts getting impatient seeing how the Genesis has been seen around the other dungeons too. He decides to enter the dungeon and tells half of his troops to stay back while the others follow him. Meanwhile, Seihan's team encounters some monsters. They jump at them, but Changu calmly slays them. As they stand idle, another monster jumps at them, but Changu calmly draws his sword out and cuts the monster in half. Changu has grown this strong because Seihan boosted him. Mina gets excited to hear about the boosting and asks Seihan to boost her, but Seihan refuses because he has another plan for her. Seihan intends to have her train with Jisoo because he believes only a prodigy can teach another prodigy, and Mina would become much more powerful after a few sparring sessions every week. At last, they reach a place where they see a huge crystal floating. Seihan realizes he's finally found the energy of a star. He takes a spear and tells everyone to check their masks for any openings. Seihan stabs the crystal with the spear. A huge glow surrounds the crystal. It starts to crack, and a giant scorpion comes out of the crystal. The scorpion's poisonous mist nearly wiped out Soul's player base in Seihan's last playthrough, and its damage was catastrophic because the regular gas masks failed against it. Seihan assures his friends that they can fight this monster because it's weaker than a sentinel, and they have to kill another one too. The team prepares to fight and takes out their weapons, but suddenly, Seihan receives a message. At the 18th dungeon, Gang soldiers are excited to find the moderate mana stones, because up until now, they've only been finding lesser mana stones. Gang finds these mana stones impressive and believes they could craft equipment with them to outperform other guilds. The mana stones reassure Gang's decision to farm the dungeons. He believes Genesis broke the promise first, so he isn't obligated to follow. Gang's men call him after his scouts find a giant hole, and Gang follows them in. Luke continues observing the guild's movement. He knows they're in danger if they keep going down the dungeon. If this was normal, the goddess would have told Luke to save these people, and he would have followed. But instead, the goddess desperately keeps trying to get Luke out of the danger. Luke knows that even if he decides to follow them, the Outrising's guildmaster will overpower him, and he might not be able to help them. The goddess tells Luke to leave, but he refuses to abandon civilians. The goddess tries to convince Luke that they're players and not civilians and they're stronger than him. Even then, Luke has the spirit of the soldiers, and the players are civilians for him. Luke's happiest moment of his life after the world changed was when the goddess chose him as her avatar and told him he had the heart of a hero. The goddess was impressed with Luke's courage and his heroics, and she offered to work with him, and as the avatar of Astria, the goddess of justice, Luke believes it would be laughable to turn around. Meanwhile, Gang stands admiring the crystal, thinking it's the imprinting stone of the dungeon. Luke barges in and tells them to evacuate because a monster is about to come out of the crystal. The crystal starts to crack. Gang refuses to believe Luke, but then he receives the message to evacuate. However, they're now too late. The crystal shatters, and the scorpion comes out of the shell. Antares, the Scorpius, didn't expect the rift to be created so soon. He became interested in the game because of the death of the crow constellation, Karas, and because Karas's position was inherited by a human. So, when Antares was asked to lend some of his scorpions to the game, he decided to personally participate as well. However, since the 12 constellations of the zodiac were beings of a mid-level or higher divinity, Antares' power had to be adjusted according to the difficulty level, and that led to this situation. Antares starts wreaking havoc in the dungeon. His power reduction is at best just an inconvenience. The players start running away, and Antares decides to reserve his poisonous mist for now. He recognizes Luke as the avatar of Virgo, but doesn't believe there's anything special about him. The game began quite a while ago, but even then Antares doesn't believe a player should be able to kill a constellation yet. He thinks there must be a special way, but only the one who defeated Karas can tell him. Antares starts crushing everyone. As he swings an attack at Kang, Luke steps in and blocks the attack. Antares now realizes an avatar is special. Kang and Luke barely hold on to the attack. Kang's arm broke in a blow, and he realizes now he was too greedy. Luke tells Kang to escape, but Kang insists on staying. But then, Kang realizes they both can't fight against this monster, and he decides to leave. Antares is impressed with Luke's selfless sacrifice, but he's still not the merciful one. He swings another blow, but Luke blocks it. While barely holding his ground, Luke realizes this is the end. In his last moments, he thinks of Lin, and knows that the guild will take care of her. Luke is almost about to give up when suddenly, the goddess calls him to become her herald. Antares is surprised and annoyed because Astria has never made that pledge, even during the Age of Mythology. Luke is surprised that the goddess wants him to become her herald. Antares is surprised with Astria's offer, but his surprise grows even bigger when Luke's bracelet suddenly glows. A voice tells the goddess to hold back on her decision. Antares is surprised with the sudden entry, but he's more surprised with Seihan's strength as he holds back his claw single-handedly. Seihan tells Astria that Luke is fitted to be her herald, but she knows that it shouldn't be done. Astria is surprised how he knows about that. Seihan adds that since she only offered to save his life, it's not needed anymore. Seihan knew that the recall bracelet would be useful. Luke wonders if Seihan doesn't think he's worthy to be the goddess's herald. But the truth is, Luke's too fit to be her herald, but his human body can't take that power. In the previous playthrough, Luke's body broke because he used Astria's power to its full extent, and Seihan refuses to let that happen again. Luke thanks Seihan for saving his life, and Seihan tells him to rest while he handles the rest. Antares is offended seeing them casually chat, but Seihan knows he's here to know how he got rid of Karas, and he decides to show him how he did it. Antares and Seihan continue to exchange each other's blows. But since a mediocre constellation like Karas was stripped of most of its powers, Antares should have been nerfed even harder as a top-tier constellation. Seihan uses his proof of transcendence and attacks Antares. The Scorpius feels offended by being underestimated, but the truth is, Seihan put a good amount of strength in his attack, but Antares' armor is durable. Seihan starts attacking the joints instead. Antares releases the poison mist. Seihan tells Jisoo to go for the head. Jisoo jumps from above and lands a blow to Antares' head. Seihan takes his chance to strike the Scorpius' eyes, and Luke too joins the fight. However, Antares realizes that this fight is no joke, and he finds Seihan incredibly strong. But he wonders what special abilities Seihan has, because he doesn't possess any special equipment. Antares feels humiliated, and wishes he could use his succession abilities. He spreads the poisonous mist everywhere, but Seihan knows Antares should know the poison is useless against them. It suddenly clicks to him as Antares escapes through a hole in the floor. Seihan tells everyone to be cautious because Antares will attack from the ground. Suddenly, his tail comes out of the hole to attack them, but they dodge it. Seihan realizes Antares must be detecting their locations through the vibrations in the ground and asks Jisoo to keep it busy. Seihan then asks Luke to message the goddess to talk to them, because he wants to borrow the power of the seventh sign. Seihan asks Luke to summon the goddess because he wishes to borrow the power of the seventh sign. Luke summons the goddess, and Seihan asks her to summon the seventh sign of the goddess, Libra. Astria knows Seihan wouldn't tell her how he knows about it, but she refuses to give him Libra's power if he plans to make Luke use it. Seihan assures her that Luke won't wield Libra's power, and so the goddess agrees to summon Libra. Jisoo continues to keep Antares distracted, and Seihan asks her to keep it up for a while. He then covers Antares' claws in orichalcum coating. Luke takes his cue and recognizes the target. He tries to summon his power, but he feels suffocated by just trying to pronounce the ability. But at last, he gathers his energy and summons the scale of the goddess, Libra. Meanwhile, Park and Gayun look up to the sky. They recognize it's from the outrising area. Seeing the sky glow, Park can't understand what's going on, and he wonders if that's why Seihan told him to stay out of the dungeons. As a bright glow descends down into the dungeon, Antares is surprised they actually summoned Libra. He knows no one here has an ounce of divinity, which makes him wonder why they would summon the scale. Luke barely holds on as the scale finally descends. Seihan, hidden behind cover, sees the scale simmering, but it starts to disappear since no one is using it. Seihan knows Luke must have fainted, but he performed his duty well. Seihan now takes his turn and starts raining fire on Antares. As Seihan jumps towards him, Antares finds himself cornered. He's surprised that a person on only his 5th quest has cornered a being as powerful as him. Antares can't believe it's happening. Suddenly, an explosion goes off, and Seihan finds Antares vanished. However, Seihan knows the death of a Zodiac would have more consequences than Karis's death, which is why the publisher had to intervene. Seihan is upset because he could have gained a lot of rewards from killing Antares. But seeing that the publisher intervened, he figures the system must have had some countermeasure and rewards for almost killing Antares. Seihan checks his system, and just as he thought, he gets his rewards. He unlocks the Scorpion Hunter achievement and is rewarded an A-rank ability ticket. The achievement is pretty much useless, but the A-rank ability ticket makes the whole trouble worth it. However, Seihan still finds it a disappointment, because he could have gotten a better ability or divinity for killing Antares. Seihan notices an incredible flow of mana, and as he looks down, he's surprised to find Esther. It is a celestial stone as strong as Mithril and has an excellent magic resistance. Esther is the best-known conductor of mana. It has the combined merits of other metals on top of its unique properties, which makes it an incredibly rare mineral. Seihan is now satisfied with the rewards, but the only question that remains is how he's going to carry Luke and Jisoo, who are unconscious, out of here. He sees the opening above and thinks about flying. Meanwhile, the other players know this unknown guild must be in first place now. They gossip about the star that descended down and Seihan flying away. Suddenly, the guild rankings pop up, and as everyone thought, D-side ranks first. Sangwon states that Seihan can never defeat him with the cheap tricks of his. Azazel is so bored because of lying in bed all the time. Thus, Huan Xin suggests she have a training match with him instead, but when she refuses, he tells her to go back to the Dark Realm since some demons might complain if she stays like this. Though Azazel is more than sure that no one would talk against her, claiming that she is lazy because of being strong. Hearing all this, the biker can't help but laugh, finding it hard to believe that she is the 3rd strongest demon with how slothful she is. Giggling while still lying on the bed, she reminds him that her powers allow her to be lazy, since she never got trained in her whole life due to the fact that she was born with them. However, just then, our silver girl recalls that blonde girl from earlier. She thinks of resigning from her position as the demon sloth if that blonde girl wants to become a demon. Although her attention shifts to the biker, who doesn't understand the reason behind Silver staying with him since he should just be a player who wants to train all day to her. Realizing that Huan Xin is overthinking, she explains that his personality thrills her, as he is the exact opposite of her. She likes how he works double for the lack of talent. Also, observers kind of just frustrate her since it is more exciting to see things at first. Curious, Azazel wants to know the reason behind his urgency to get stronger. In addition to that, she guessed that maybe it is to get revenge against that crow from before. Without lying, Huan Xin reveals that he lost that battle, has no plan to go after him specifically, and is just making the most out of the situation he has right now. This makes Silver realize that this guy has no objective at this moment, and this is the moment she could see some hesitation inside him. Immediately then, she demands that he go to the convenience store with her. Confused, Huan Xin wonders aloud if she wants to buy something, but Azazel doesn't give him much information, which leaves him curious. Later on, both of them arrive at an industrial site. At this point, Huan Xin is puzzled as hell, because why has she brought them here? Sitting on the pile of broken compartments, Silver declares to do meditation here, while Huan Xin just stands there, looking around, not understanding what is up with this girl. In an instant, his gaze shifts towards a kid running with horror inside the building of the site area. A grin appears on Azazel's face because she knows that the biker won't ignore this, as he saves the imprisoned children by using an item earlier. Without hesitating, Silver challenges Huan Xin to go after the kid, or she will end up dying here. Huan Xin doesn't understand if the demon's job at this point is to save children. On the other hand, the little girl Sua Min is running for her life. Worried, she reveals that her future showed death for her before, but her destiny has been getting very hard to foresee recently. This makes her understand that a presence that shouldn't exist normally is intervening in the situation. Running for her life, the poor kid could see 2 to 3 jerks chasing her, but but unexpectedly her head hit something hard, and when she looked up, it was Huan Xin. Suamin has fallen on the ground, scared that maybe he is one of the members of the demon's minions following her, but then she senses the aura of the contractor. Suamin curses her luck since she ended up running into a contractor while running from the demon minions. The poor kid is scared to death, just hoping that Huan Xin doesn't harm her. The demon minions are confused to see him, while Huan Xin recognizes that they are minions of a demon, though he doesn't understand the reason behind them being dressed in indigo because usually they are dressed in black. One of the minions approaches Huan Xin, demanding to know who he is. He tries to intimidate Huan Xin since he doesn't want anyone else to catch this kid. Yet, Huan Xin punches that guy in his face, throwing him on the ground. Before knocking them all out, he just gave them a warning. They'd all be dead soon. Later on, while the bodies lie on the ground, Huan Xin inquires of the little girl. He wants to know why these people were chasing her. When the girl tries to explain, he suggests she leave, assuring her that he has no plan to interrogate her. Right now, the biker thinks that he just became very nosy, telling himself that it is not his concern if this girl gets caught again. Instead of leaving, the little girl follows Huan Xin, who goes back to Azazel. Upon seeing the kid, Silver demands to know the name of the girl while grabbing her chin. Scared, Suamin introduces herself but is also puzzled about who Azazel is. The biker warns Silver to not scare the kid, but Silver informs him that they will go separate ways if he is planning to bring her with him. Walking towards his bike, Huan Xin begins to leave, having no plan of bringing her with them, which shocks Azazel because this kid is a valuable companion. Knowing that this man changed her destiny since she was going to die today, Suamin stops Huan Xin, requesting him to take her with them. Huan Xin doesn't understand from where this little kid is getting the audacity to ask this, but he is taken aback when the little girl reveals that she can foresee the future. Moreover, Suamin elaborates that she is the avatar of the goddess, the chosen one of Skuld, who can see the future. Huan Xin's eyes shine with thrill when the little girl confesses that she can foresee how this game will end. This shocks Huan Xin, and to be more precise, she explains that she is the goddess of the future. However, the thrill in Huan Xin's eyes disappears, and he doesn't understand if this little kid thinks that this could be the reason for him to bring her along. Stuttering, the little girl reveals that her older brother will die if he leaves her here. Trembling with tears streaming down her face, Suamin admits that her brother is in very serious danger. At first, the little girl's brother was supposed to live for revenge after she died here today, yet she is alive right now. Thus, he is the one who will die as destiny changes. Having said that, Huan Xin lets out a heavy sigh, wondering if Azazel planned all of this for him, though he questions Silver if she will be able to find her way back home. Smirking, Azazel tells Huan Xin to go ahead, as she will be taking a lazy walk before getting back. Upon hearing it, Huan Xin gets on the bike and tells the crying little kid to hop on it. Confused, the little girl doesn't understand what is going on, so Huan Xin tells her to talk about all of this after they get back. Back at the place, Sua Min, while having tea, informs Huan Xin that the guild that kidnapped her older brother is the enemy guild of the Waning Crescent, and they call themselves the Shaded Sky. The moment Huan Xin hears the name, he remembers. They were a branch division of the Dark Sky clan, realizing they might be free now to cause this commotion. Curious, the biker inquires of Sua Min if this group was kidnapping children too, but she clarifies that it was not the case, and they just wanted to capture her for her ability, since they wanted to use her capability to gain benefits in the guild events. The little girl had no plan of helping them, and this is why they took her brother as a hostage, to get information from her. Instantly, Azazel arrives as well, leaving the kid startled. Interested, she questions Sua Min about the range at which she can see the future. The innocent girl reveals that she can see around 3 seconds into the future, which shows her a short but brief glimpse. However, this foresighting can be done any time with a very short cooldown. Additionally, Sua Min can select a date to read into, a couple of days from now or a month or two. Though the further she looks into the future, the cooldown capability gets longer. Surprisingly, Sua Min's physical stats are normal, but her abilities surpass the average avatars. Maybe they are affected by her own potential. One thing is sure. Skuld must be fond of her since this girl is so compatible with her ability. Just then, the little kid reminds them that she even knows how this game ends. Puzzled, Huan Xin wants the answer. At the same time, Azazel is concerned if this is even possible, as she wonders if a goddess should be prohibited from doing something like this. However, it might be possible that Sua Min bypassed the system and got to know the ending because of being immortal with no divinity. Sua Min specifies that she can see the type of ending. Basically, she is aware of how this world will come to an end. Puzzled, Silver demands to know if it is a bad ending due to the fact that mainly all the planets turned into a game end in a pretty bad way. When the little girl denies, they get a ray of hope that maybe it is going to be a happy ending, but Sua Min refuses that too. The ending of the game has been changed once already. Sua Min has no idea why it changed, but she was aware of it even before the game started. It is the ending where only one person survives. However, the ending was changed just before it all began, and what she saw back then was the current ending they have, the madness of the Demon Lord. In another environment, our boy yawns as he has been playing for a long time. He thought of getting second or third place, but ended up coming first since the performance of the opponents in the dungeons was pretty bad. The MC's gaze shifts to Bexul, who is staring at our protagonist, wondering what to call him. Sweat trickles down his face with embarrassment and shock when she shares the idea of calling him father. Playfully, Seihan inquired who her mother would be then. Very precisely, Snowhide explains that she has no mother, but if she gets to choose, she will have Lin as her mother. Our guy finds it foolish, insisting she call him by his name only. At this point, Seihan wonders how Minha finds this child cute enough to take her everywhere. Yet, he could notice her inheriting Lin's bloodline since she already got 5 offensive spells and a regenerative spell, making him realize that she will become someone very powerful. Seeing her staring quietly, the protagonist tells her to speak whatever she wants, so she spills that Changchu wanted Seihan to know that he found the dungeon our boy was looking for. At first, our boy gets confused, but then recalls that Changchu mentioned doing something around that area, and this is why he was eager to train every day in dungeons. Using the crow's attribute, he finds the Dungeon of Dreams. Abruptly, Seihan stands up, telling Bexel to accompany him as they really need her power this time. Snow White never expected that our guy would ask her to join him, but this time they need her powers very much. They need the power of a divine beast to unlock the dungeon entrance. The Dungeon of Dreams is generated in a separate realm due to the fact that it is the unique instance dungeon. But, even being among the instance dungeons, to enter this Dungeon of Dreams, a divine offering is necessary. Despite this necessity, the reward of this dungeon is Laplace's Hourglass. The Laplace Hourglass is an S-rank item, which manifests someone's future for 30 minutes, but it is considered a bad reward as it can only be used for 30 minutes, but Seihan has made it his motive to have it no matter what happens. A grin appears on his face when he spots Jisoo too with Bexel. He finds it impossible for them to go in together this time. Though, Jisoo clarifies that she wants to go because she wants to see what an instance dungeon really is. Also, they need protection for Bexel once they enter the dungeon, so Jisoo will be a great help. Standing in front of a giant door, our boy turns back, facing Bexel, confirming if she will be able to do it. Nervously, Snow White nods, and upon tilting her head, she charges a magical bubble towards the door, which crashes directly into the door, causing a bright glow to appear, and the door to the dungeon opens. Impressed, our boy pats Snow White's head. Right then, Jisoo asks if they should wait for him there, but Seihan tells them to head back first. With that, our boy extends his hand towards the gate of the dungeon, illuminating energy from his body to the gate. After a while, Seihan finds himself lying on the floor of a building that he doesn't recognize. This Dungeon of Dreams has different missions for every person who enters it, and most of the time, it connects to something a person desires the most, though this is our guy's first experience. Upon waking up, Seihan wonders if he is stuck in a dream or a memory of his past. Our protagonist ponders into thoughts, not being able to recall the time he used to stay here. Before he could grasp what was going on, a loud voice was heard, and before a disastrous explosion occurred, our hero sensed danger and got out of the building by creating a barrier around himself. Now Seihan realizes that he was sent back to the quest that he regrets the most. Glancing around the disastrous place, the MC continues to move ahead, but the moment he feels a presence behind him, he holds back the person who was just about to attack him. It is none other than Suho Min. Suho Min takes a sigh of relief because the magical arrays summoned by our boy to hold him could have killed him, but by luck he got saved. Leaping higher into the air, Suho Min lands on the roof of a nearby building. Upon seeing him, the protagonist demands to know why Suho Min is here, and why so late. Smirking, the cool shade confesses that he is here to kill our guy. Hearing it, Seihan smiles nervously, realizing it is all being shown just like he remembers, a perfectly constructed simulation. Following that, Suho Min lets out a heavy sigh, mocking our guy for not settling with a compromise. Though the cool shade acknowledges what our boy might be thinking, players being alive is much better than the civilians. There were so many of them this time. With that, he reminds the hero that he was even planning to sneak attack all of them. Seihan stands there dumbfounded, not liking the tricks that this dungeon is playing. The question was the things Seihan regretted the most, and the objective of the quest was plain. There was a team having 1,000 good players and another of 1 lakh civilians. Thus, they had to save only one of the two. A limited area was given to each team by the GM, and the outside players had to choose only one. Additionally, they had to kill the team they neglected. Back then, our guy decided to save 1,000 players because more players were needed to continue the game, instead of civilians, and this is why he had to fight this guy, Suho Min. Looking at Seihan standing like a statue, Suho Min offers him to turn back, and he will be spared. He claims that he is different from our guy since he doesn't believe that all of his enemies should be murdered. That being said, our guy remarks to Coolshade that it's an easy thing to say. Furthermore, he informs about backing down for now, but clarifies that he won't give up on the quest. Suho Min doesn't care, as he is damn sure that they will end up winning, no matter what moves Seihan's team pulls. The confidence was understandable, as the guild the Coolshade belonged to was the strongest one. However, our guy announces to back down, which seems not very typical of him to Suho. Afterwards, Seihan quickly covers a large distance with his swift speed. Though his body feels older since the time this quest was given, he was just 30 years old. In the past life, our MC actually killed Suho Min, so it definitely has changed things from the previous life. Too many thoughts race through his mind. He thinks about what Suho's guild would think about him backing down so easily. While moving ahead, his gaze darts at Lin Taylor. That is when he recalls the biggest mistake of his previous life. In his previous life, Seihan killed Lin. After some time, Seihan is walking on the road, and that is when a familiar voice calls him. It is Seo. He wants to know how everything went and if our guy succeeded. Looking at Seo, the protagonist freezes for some moments, finding it weird to see him here, but then he reveals that he backed off because of too much intervention. Upon hearing it, Seo sighs with disappointment, but is not able to say much. Behind him, a crowd of people gather, questioning Seihan about many things. Some are concerned if the enemy players were planning to attack them, while the others beg him not to leave because they want to know the answers since they have not much time left until the quest is due. Nervously sighing, the hero explains that he is not aware of everything as well, so they all should just settle themselves, as he himself has a lot of things going on in his mind. Pressing forward to rest, Seihan arrives in the bedroom. His mind is racing with tons of thoughts, and he can't believe how shitty this dungeon is, playing with his mind like this. Curious, the MC opens his status window and gets to know that his progression speed is very slow in the current timeline, but it was expected by him already. Though his eyes widen with shock when he notices more abilities, and his quest is to clear the Dungeon of Dreams, where his memories have come alive. To clear this quest, he must complete his past quest within the same time limit. This is very shocking for the hero because this means he had to kill his opponent like in his previous life. He wonders if this time all of this will be easy. However, all of this just feels so wrong to him, and this is why he thinks to plan another way of doing this. His attention shifts to Yidra, who in a past life used to show herself out of nowhere. Even right now, she is motivating our boy, assuring him of her support, and being sure that his decision will end up saving many lives. Yet, this all seems like a lie to him. Yidra was already aware about how the world would be in trouble if things went this way. way, and that he was already past the point of no return. Still, Sehun is no one to blame her, as she genuinely cared about humanity. Following that, the protagonist addresses her by her name and demands to know an answer. Hearing her name, Yidra is awestruck, as everyone only calls her a witch. Dream Witch Yidra, an outer god from the Cthulhu mythos and the only god who is interested in humanity. Yidra is a deviant god from another realm who joined the game, but no one was able to go against her because the power she owns is flawless and unmatched. The funny part is that even the system didn't dare to interfere with her. The protagonist is still unsure why Yidra chose him as her avatar, but she always took his side because she wanted humanity to survive. Yet she left Earth after the world ended. Blushing, Yidra could sense that her avatar was acting a little different today, though he focuses on the things Sehun wants to ask. Cleverly, our guy asks her about the Dungeon of Dreams. Upon hearing this question, Yidra gets a little shocked since she was not expecting this question, but our boy pretends that he is curious. However, Yidra understands that this whole reality is an imagination of his memory, and this is why she called her by her actual name. When our guy tries to pretend that this is not true, Yidra reminds him that someone's attitude doesn't change overnight. She understands that it applies to anyone with humanity, revealing that humanoid gods are the same. She acknowledges the fact that Sehun doesn't hold on to the past enough to mention this out of nowhere, and he has never ever been to the Dungeon of Dreams as well. Thus, she can only think of it as a simulation, as there is no connection of the current situation with the Dungeon of Dreams. Her being cool about it shocks Sehun. She doesn't seem bothered to be a simulation. Yidra clarifies that it doesn't matter to her, but then she realizes that our hero never actually addresses her by her name in reality. She finds all of it pretty thrilling and even has some questions, but she decides to keep this curiosity inside her. Ignoring that, the MC shows severe urgency to get to know about the Dungeon of Dreams, as something about it being too perfect bothers him a lot. He explains that he doesn't remember every player he has met in the past, but those people exist in this world, so he wants to know if they are being here randomly or if they really existed in this timeline. The question makes Yidra proud, and she explains that a reality as complete as this cannot only be built from memory, which means his timeline was searched based on the information his memory has. This is how the dungeon has created a copy of that world, and this could be done with the help of the system. In conclusion, all of this is a pure manifestation of his past or future. Everyone here is doing the same things that they did in the past, but in reality they are just an illusion created by the Dungeon of Dreams, and that includes even Yidra. After hearing all of this, our MC has finally understood how to complete this quest. He has to complete this shitty quest once again, and he has to do it by repeating the same things that happened in the past, but he has to try different things to be rewarded better. It might be possible that the dungeon doesn't want the same outcomes as before, and wants Sehun to achieve things he didn't in the past. At this point, our guy wonders what will happen if he saves Lin. Later on, the MC meets Seo, who is weaponsmithing. Sehun tells Seo that he needs to meet Mina Lee. Upon hearing this, the protagonist gets confused, wondering aloud if Sehun wants her help for upcoming battles, not being sure if she would consider how self-centered she is. However, the protagonist needs an item that Mina Lee can make, an elixir. The fact that Seo is not very good with alchemy is the reason he cannot make it, though he is more than sure that no player knows Mina Lee. Just then, Seo leaves, but the conversation makes one thing clear. No one knows Mina Lee, because Seo, being the best blacksmith, knows literally everyone, and if he is not aware about her, then no one can be. Not having any choice and not even being able to open the chat room in the status window, our boy called for Yidra to know where Mina is. The moment she appears, she grabs his face from behind, playfully taunting him for being so needy since he used to be so dismissive. Smirking, our guy admits how shameful he is being after getting to know they all are just fabrications. Simultaneously, he genuinely wants to know if she really had to manifest herself instead of writing a message, as it takes many points for her to do this. If all of this is actually a simulation, Yidra doesn't care about the points. With that, she reveals that Mina Lee is at Cheonan right now. Upon receiving this information, they decide to leave as soon as possible. Sehun arrives at Cheonan's high school according to Mina's location. Upon entering the school, our boy witnessed many dead bodies lying on the floor, blood gushing out of them. It was the perfect spot for a horror movie. While looking at the dead bodies, Sehun's focus shifts to the uniform being worn by the dead bodies. It is the same as Mina's. In an instant, the hero senses a presence behind him, but before it could cause him any harm, Sehun blocked that attack with his sword without even turning back. The one who attacked him is none other than Mina, who was not expecting our boy to block an attack like that, but then again, he hadn't expected her to ambush him like that either. Approaching him, Mina suggests to him that it is better to be a hunter instead of being hunted, given the circumstances lately. The MC expressed how cruel all of this sounds to him at the reunion. At first, Mina doesn't understand the meaning behind this, but then realizes that she saw his face maybe 2 years ago. Without beating around the bush, Mina demands to know the reason behind his arrival here. She just hopes he is not here for her. She also is curious about how he found her. Proudly, the hero flicks his finger, showing off the witch's observer, leaving Mina shocked as she didn't expect that an avatar could still communicate with their god. This reminds Sehun of the god that was very fond of Mina too, but she lost all contact with her a year ago. This reminds the protagonist that the last time he saw Mina, he didn't see her observer, so this is nothing but a game for them to expand. However, Mina is now aware that our boy really wants to talk about something, so she suggests he follow her so that they have a proper place where they can talk. Both of them enter a room, where Sehun spots memorial pictures, but unfortunately, Mina couldn't find all photos of her classmates. Seeing her behavior, the hero assumes that she must be very close to them, but gets shocked when he hears that she doesn't have many friends, and ended up this way because of how the situation changed in the world, since she used to be a pretty shy kid before all of it happened. The way she is now makes it pretty hard to believe that she was shy, but she changed herself after the first main quest. She got eager to survive and even got better at acting. She precisely remembers the day all of it began. At that time, she was skipping classes with some friends in Seoul, and in an instant, everything changed. As soon as she hears it, Sehun inquires whether she is originally from Seoul. Mina explains that she was only visiting there because her friend's sister had some business, so they went there for fun, but eventually, they were separated. Therefore, she stayed in Seoul for some time to find them. She even robbed banks to get money, but it was all useless. The only connection they had was their school uniform, so she kept wearing it. Eventually, she found them too, but it was too late because they had probably signed a contract with some demon, and it used them to their last breath until they died. All of it made her realize how pointless everything is, and this is why she is holding this little memorial service of her own here. Even her parents died on the first day, so she had no place to go to. At the mention of the demon, Seihan wonders if the girls were used by the Dark Sky Clan, but then his eyes widen with shock, and he flinches because he killed all the Dark Sky Clan members in this timeline. Not able to hold back, the hero questions Mina if she or her friends were ever related to the Dark Sky Clan. Mina is not sure about it since her friends were a part of another group. This makes Seihan a little relieved, and he realizes to not kill demon contractors recklessly, and decides to tell about this to Jisoo as well. Getting to the point, Mina wants to know what our guy wanted to ask earlier. The hero reveals that originally he was going to ask for her help with their current quest, but it won't be happening, so he wants to ask if she can make him an elixir instead. Hearing about the quest, this girl yaps that she chose to save 1,000 players by accident. Hearing this, Seihan can't help but nervously grin because he only ran into tragic accidents, but here, she chose something good by accident. Being bored, Mina decides to make it for him and asks about its amount. Seihan wants only a single bottle, though he wants something extra, which is pretty simple. Our boy reaches out to something in his pocket and requests Mina to make it usable for top-ranking players. On the other hand, Suho Min is very puzzled, being sure that something is going on because he is aware that the MC never backs off this easily, and now he is missing. His attention shifts to Taehan Kim, who reminds him that they are in the middle of a meeting, so he should daydream somewhere else. A meeting of the guild Erget Lam is being held right now. Sangwon Cheon, the guildmaster, tells everyone to finish things up quickly, as they have very few days left before the quest ends. Smirking, Yunsik Kang advises him to take care of it himself, as he can finish everything with one ability only, though Sangwon Cheon reminds Junsik to not underestimate the opponent. He agrees that their guild is undeniably strong, but the opponent has powerful players on their side too, like the Saint, Yu Hua Sin, with them. Junsik tells the guildmaster to not call that girl a saint, as she abandoned 1 lakh civilians. Though Junsik knows someone in the players, a guy in black who uses different weapons, he is talking about our boy. When Sangwon understands that Junsik is talking about Seihan, he can't help but admit the strong capabilities he holds, and that he is one of the strongest members who is their opponent. Junsik's gaze darkens, and an evil grin appears on his face when he looks at Lin, who wants to kill Seihan. Before Sangwon could scold Junsik for passing irrelevant comments, a guy with immense urgency entered the place, informing them all about a significant number of players being spotted outside the containment area. That being said, Junsik is all ready to face them after a long wait, but Taehan Kim volunteers himself since Junsik could damage his own team as well. Before leaving, Taehan assures them he will put an end to these players as soon as possible. In just 2 days, Mina made an elixir and all those other requirements our guy wanted. Her speed definitely surprises and impresses Seihan, making him realize that she will be on another level in the future. At the same time, he regrets not asking her for help, as she is so cooperative. However, today is the day when Seihan's side took a devastating loss. After our boy returned from his fight against Suho Min, his side barely managed to fight against the opponents, though Seihan had to kill most of them. After seeing the time, the protagonist plans to leave quickly after meeting Seo. He recalls Taehan Kim being the one who led the attack against them. Thus, he must be coming to the battlefield alone right now. Therefore, the hero decides to take this as an opportunity and defeat him. At the battlefield, Taehan Kim has actually come. Panic washes over everybody's face when he threatens to give them all the final warning. At this point, the players regret not having backed up immediately after their ambush failed. The small fries who have come with this giant hulk laugh at their situation, while the chief is puzzled, not understanding what to do. They are even thinking about their pride, because backing off like this would be so embarrassing. Analyzing the situation, the chief notices how Taehan gave them a warning, even though he is stronger than them. So if he wanted, he really would have knocked them out within seconds. So maybe there is a reason that he is not fighting right now. So he decides to take Taehan on, instead of running away. Grabbing his weapon, the chief declares to take Taehan's head today. When Taehan's small fries try to attack them instead, he tells them to back off, ensuring to take care of everything from here. The teammates try to warn this giant hulk, reminding him that his opponents include high-ranking players too. But the small fries can't say much when this giant hulk looks at them with his deadly eyes. Without giving any warning, leaping higher into the air, the chief aimed directly at Taehan with his aura axe. To his surprise, the giant hulk is not blocking the attack, which makes him assume that maybe he is too fast for Taehan. But the moment the chief lands on the ground, his axe doesn't harm Taehan a bit, leaving him startled. Looking straight into his eyes, Taehan asks him if he knows who Baldur is. Scared, the chief grits his teeth, recalling a little about him. He could recall Baldur being the top-tier god of light as the son of Odin. Abruptly, the chief could see Taehan emanating an immense amount of energy, and without any hesitation, he swung his fist, hitting the poor man, while revealing that Baldur was liked by all beings, and nothing could harm him. While slamming the chief onto the ground, he elaborates that Baldur's blessings apply to him as well. At this point, the chief couldn't respond. His eyes were now lifeless after the impact of that punch, and being slammed on the ground. All the players present there are scared to death because this giant hulk actually knocked out a high-ranking player in a single strike. Panic slashes across their faces. They turn back and begin to run away, but Taehan already gave them a warning, and they refuse to take it, so now they have to face the consequences. The poor players were frozen at their place, accepting their fate as the giant hulk approached them with swift movements. However, before he could even attack the player, his attack was blocked by none other than our boy, Seihan. Seihan blocks the attack with his sword. Seeing him, Taehan immediately recognizes that he is the same guy everyone has been talking about, and he always wondered how Seihan would be. Right now, our boy's small sword is literally holding back a giant weapon of Taehan. The giant hulk is kind of surprised as he hears that our boy is not someone to fight head-on like this. The protagonist admits that it is true but clarifies that he needed to jump in between since those idiot players were about to die. Spotting how our guy has blocked the attack surprises Taehan, since he is aware that no one is physically stronger than him, even in Erget Lambs. His attention shifts back to Seihan when he questions the giant hulk about the problems with RPG games. When it confuses Taehan, our boy explains that in RPG games, it makes the players save many items even when there are tons of them, which are collected but never used. All of this makes Taehan angry, as he is not understanding one bit of anything the hero is trying to portray. but his eyes widen with panic when the MC declares that this giant Hulk has no chance of winning. Before Taihan could figure out what was going on, the system notified him to run immediately, but it was too late as his eyes rolled back and blood gushed out of his body. This is all like a puzzle for him because he tries activating his own ability, but instead all of this has happened, making him realize that Seihan has poisoned him. The giant Hulk falls to his knees while our guy jumps back to get away from his opponent as he wipes his blade, having poison and blood on it. In a weak voice, Taehan could only curse Seihan, but our boy just stood there enjoying the sight of his enemy being finished. It is definitely a good start for him. When the news of Seihan killing Taihan spread everywhere, Seogyak Park visited our boy to confirm if it was true. He slams his hand on the table, demanding to know if it is actually true. The way our guy is being so cool about killing someone like Taehan makes Bluey shocked. Though, Seihan believes it'll be easier to act if he gets famous for this. He regrets not using mistletoe before, since it could have stopped a lot of damage. Right now, Seogyak Park is finding it unreal. He always knew that the MC is strong, but he never thought this was his power. Seihan admits that he didn't know it as well, but he could have knocked out all the Airget Lamb commanders on his own at that time. Hearing that, Seogyak Park wonders aloud if taking them all down by himself can be done. He is scared that our guy might be lying. Seihan clarifies to Bluey that he has no interest in telling lies and makes a proposal to him. The protagonist demands 3 days from Seogyak Park to put an end to this quest. Later on, St. Yuhua Sin meets Seihan. She is more than impressed because not only did our boy kill that giant Hulk, but he also brought his corpse here too. She tries to think about what is going on in his little head. Our boy acknowledges that Yuhua is the best healer he knows, so he just wanted to see if she could revive him. This sounds like a joke to Yuhua because how could she possibly revive someone dead? Smiling, he states how he thought it would be possible for Saint Yuhua. Him calling her a saint annoys the hell out of her, but she makes it clear that he is dead, and her healing spells won't even work on him. Though she notices the way some wounds were already healed, so the MC explains that he smeared some elixir on the giant Hulk before he died. At first, Yuhua doesn't carefully hear him, but the moment realization hits her, she looks up to Seihan, questioning him about how this guy died if the protagonist used elixir, realizing he might be testing something with her. Because if Taihan was probably still alive when Seihan used the elixir, he must have died afterward, but if the elixir was smeared, it should have healed him. All of this just frustrated Yua because the main lead always tries to act dumb in front of her. She now understands that our boy definitely has some other plan, and this is why he wanted her to preserve this corpse for him. She leans closer to him, tapping a finger on his lips when he admits that she is the only one he trusts. With that, she lets out a sigh and confirms if there will be more bodies like this coming to her. Without lying, Seihan confesses that there will definitely be more bodies, but he will take care of them himself. Zipping up the body and taking it with her, Yuhua suggests our guy give him notice the next time. Our guy assures her to bring a gift with her too the next time. As she leaves, he looks at her quietly, deep down knowing that Yuhua will die in the next quest once this one is done. This moment is just a fantasy created for him by the Dungeon of Dreams, and once he finishes this quest and leaves the dungeon, all of this will just disappear. He recalls how he never was able to thank her, and how Yuhua was always there for him, and took care of his injuries after his fight against Suho Min, and after he was healed, he never saw her face again. Therefore now he thinks of something to give her as a gift. At the Airget Guild, Jinsuk is finding it unbelievable that Seihan was always this strong. Simultaneously, Sangwon thinks that our guy was aware of Taehan's weakness, and took that as an opportunity. He likely used a mistletoe against him. Jinsuk doesn't think that is the case, but Sangwon has heard that Seihan prepares him for the opponent accordingly. Ignoring that, Jinsuk turns to Lin, asking her if it surprises her at all, but it doesn't because Seihan is the one who murdered her father. And this was how our boy got famous because of the collapsing soul incident. Aldebaran of Taurus was defeated by Luke Taylor, and Seihan was the one who killed him since he couldn't be controlled. The protagonist was in the spotlight for this for some time, but then people lost interest in him the moment he disappeared. At this moment, Lin reveals that the goddess Astria has a contract with her after her father died, but she never spoke, probably because of Luke's death. Still, she has a feeling that Astria looks over her. Now Lin has the urge to kill Seihan due to the pain and agony he has caused her. Jinsuk is sure that she could gradually be given her prize in magic, but he cannot wait for that since he claims to be the one to kill Seihan first. Not caring about all of this, Sangwon slams his hand on the table, reminding them all that they underestimated everything until now. But right now, they are in crisis and have lost their most valuable person. Thus, they have no time to take things lightly and work in groups to be safe. They decide to pay their opponents back as soon as they finish their preparation after 2 days. On the flip side, our boy has arrived at the Airget Guild very quietly, taking down one of the security guards in order to get moving. Seihan is now out of the civilian-occupied zone. From the Witch's Observer, Yidra asks the MC about his next move. However, this question is foolish because the protagonist has no choice but to fight them. Yidra is not sure if he will be able to defeat them on his own. She is kind of surprised to see him being this risky. Being honest, Seihan admits that he would have never done it this way before, but now he has figured out that he has many options, and he should utilize them. He also admits that he never took Yidra into consideration because he was very hesitant to ask for the power of a god. He thought that it was the same as strangling himself. Though he agrees that he still thinks like this, now his point of view has changed little. Now he doesn't mind a little strangling, especially at a place where everything is mere fabrication. Just then, playfully, our boys question Yidra if she really knows how to edit video games. At the rooftop of the building, Sangwon inquires of Suho Min about the number of people being located. Suho and his team are not certain, but they suspect that there are not many of them because they are moving very slowly. It is kind of surprising for Sangwon for not being able to detect any of them, which makes him wonder if they have gotten away, or maybe they have a hiding ability of such a high level. Just then, Surin Lee approaches them all. She finds all of this very annoying, suggesting they should attack at this point. Yet, Suho-min reminds her that there must be some infiltrators for them for distraction. Though Surin is certain about one thing, there are not many people who have entered their territory since they are hard to find. She doesn't think that 2 to 3 people might cause such great damage, as they have their own army, so it is better to make the first move. Still, Suho-min does not agree with this, as they are not aware of anything yet. This behavior frustrates Surin due to the fact that they all look like a bunch of scared kids, but Suho definitely has no good feelings about this. Moreover, Surin tries to make them all understand that this way they are just being controlled by the enemy. When no one responds to her, she decides to take care of things her way. While moving outside, Surin is cursing his guild leader, not believing that they are scared of 2 to 3 people. Abruptly, she turns around when she senses a presence, but there is no one, which makes her think that maybe it is just her imagination, but then she actually senses a trail of energy, making it evident that something is here right now. Her gaze shifts to the ground, finding a bomb. A smirk appears on her face because she is a magician, so she has a firm belief that she can turn into a piece of scrap in seconds. The moment she casts her magic, nothing happens, even after she dispels the mana of the mana stone. The moment she realized that it was a trap, it got too late. A loud explosion occurred in the area, leaving everyone panicked. Everyone in the Airget Guild panics too. Some people even collapse after inhaling the smoke, making the rest of the people realize that something is wrong with the smoke of the explosion. Surin, who was being oversmart moments ago, managed to escape the explosion, but right now she is gasping for air badly since she inhaled some of the gas. Sitting on the ground, the girl wonders what kind of gas this is. The thick smoke makes it harder for Surin to see anyone, but the moment our boy comes up to her, mocking her that he knows that she will find it first, Surin calls his plan a failure because she is alive. However, when the smoke settles, Seihan's smirk is evident because she escaped, but the civilians couldn't escape it. Because of her, the smoke spread throughout the city, which made his plan 10 times more effective. Panic and guilt slash across Surin's face. Furthermore, the MC informs Surin that this is the end for her, as he doesn't want to tackle Morrigan anymore. Her jaw drops since Seihan is aware of her god too. Realization hits her that this guy is very strong, so she decides to finish him off in a single blow, but the moment she is about to chant her strongest spell, blood splatters out of her mouth. The state she is in makes it impossible for her to cast any spell, and our boy just grins by seeing this. He can't believe that Surin didn't spot the illusion. The bomb did an amazing job. Because this girl is already affected by the bomb, but in her illusion world, she thinks she escaped it. While Surin lies on the ground lifeless, the hero decides to take care of this quickly before the rest arrive. When Junsuk and Suho realize that it might be Surin who is hurt, they both quickly get out of the building. Both the guys grit their teeth upon seeing their biggest threat. At this point, Suho just regrets letting Seihan go and thinks that he would fight for humanity. Suho can't believe that this smoke is spreading so fast, and countless civilians are dead. Even Surin is dead because of him, and the players are in danger too after this explosion. Thus, Suho aims to kill the protagonist now. Both Junsuk and Suho glance at each other, aiming to not let this guy get away with this. Suho, who is associated with the god Matcha, and Junsuk, who is associated with the god Agni, decide to kill Seihan then and there. Both the guys have the blessings of their gods. One has storm and the other has fire, which implies on both of the guys. Upon noticing it, Seihan finds it terrifying. Not wasting any moment, Suho lunges forward with his weapon, charging swiftly at our boy. The MC can't help but notice how fast Suho is. The moment he sees the cool shade being very close, Seihan summons his clones everywhere to confuse him. This move pulled by Seihan just makes Suho frustrated. However, Jinsuk stands atop the building, summoning an immense amount of fire and striking it at the hero, but without even hesitating or struggling, Seihan creates a shield to protect himself and dodges the immense amount of fire, leaping higher into the air behind Jinsuk. Spotting the MC behind him, sweat trickled down Jinsuk's face. He notices Seihan having a crystal made by a spell, which is actually fire, and he can easily fire everything by cutting off the oxygen and mana. Summoning waves of fire around himself, Jinsuk slams his hand on the ground, causing a huge fire typhoon to appear on the building to engulf Seihan in fire. But in the blink of an eye, Seihan escapes the attack. Both Jinsuk and Suho are panting heavily, looking frustrated as hell. Smirking, the main lead assures them of being done with running away. His gaze turns to the side, wondering where Sangwon is, and if he trusts these two guys to deal with Seihan. No matter what the case, this is a win-win situation for him. Right then, Seihan mocks the guys about looking way too exhausted, but they don't admit it, blaming it on the MC's habit of running away. However, when Seihan assures them that he won't run away anymore, Suho can sense that something fishy is going on. Suho is very well aware that Seihan only shows himself if he sees any benefits, meaning he only fights when he knows that he will win 100%. He disappeared from this world, and then came back to this territory all alone. In addition to that, he is ready to face 2 Airget Lam warriors. This makes Suho realize that the Seihan he knows would never do all of this, so this is definitely a trap. In an instant, he grabs Jinsuk and warns him to run, but it is too late, as due to the magic, they are being stuck to the ground. Our boy has activated the magic devices that he set beforehand to put these guys in a trap. However, Suho is not ready to give up since he has this swamp infested with paralyzing toxins with him, so he tries to slam his weapon on the ground. Not caring about his moves, the protagonist stands there unfazed, suggesting that they should not think of this as being cheap, as he is alone, fighting 2 guys. Chapter 70. Lying there, Suho realizes he's completely done for. Surin Lee was killed first, who was the only one who could have dispelled the magic. All of this could have been avoided if they had just played it smart. Later, the main lead finds himself being relentlessly chased. Despite wanting the situation to end calmly, chaos continues to linger around him. More importantly, he can't seem to shake the attention of Sangwon Cheon. Then, out of nowhere, Mina Lee appears to check on him, leaving him baffled at how she even managed to show up. As she stands there, a group of men suddenly try to attack her. With a simple snap of her fingers, she blocks their strike. Calmly, she suggests that she could be of help since she's also part of the quest. However, she makes it clear that the only thing she truly cares about is how the quest will end. During their conversation, she effortlessly dodges several other attacks without breaking her focus. The main character takes note of this, realizing how mindful she is of her surroundings, and decides he can rely on her. Meanwhile, Sangwon Cheon is blaming himself for the terror attack, believing he could have somehow played a role in preventing it. Before long, he arrives at the location where the protagonist is and shouts his name. Without hesitation, he leaps over the building where Sehan is standing. He tries attacking multiple times, forcing Sehan to recognize that this is a fight he needs to take seriously, or he risks being cut down. Sehan taunts him, saying his biggest mistake was overestimating himself. Sangwon disagrees, admitting instead that his true heir was being too merciful and not finishing Sehan when he had the chance. The main lead realizes that Sangwon is not as terrifying as Suho Min, but he's still a dangerous threat. Sehan then makes his way toward a deserted area, intentionally luring Sangwon to follow him. Sangwon mocks him, claiming he has no flaws and can't be beaten. When they finally reach the lonely, abandoned place, Sangwon scoffs, wondering what kind of delusion Sehan must be under to think he can win. But Sehan only smirks, revealing that all preparations are now complete. Sehan acknowledges his lack of strength and abilities against Sangwon, but claims that he has one thing superior to Sangwon. When Sangwon asks about it, mocking if Sehan's talking about his ability to be a villain or his arrogance, Sehan agrees and accepts those titles. Nonetheless, he claims that there's something else too, which Sangwon should experience firsthand to understand, and states the name of Yidra. Lightning sparks at the name of Yidra, and the other players stare at the sky, confusedly wondering what's wandering in the sky. The truth is that in the sky, Sehan and Sangwon are standing against each other. Sangwon questions Sehan about what he has just done, but before Sehan could answer, a giant figure starts to appear from the lightning sky. He tries to question the appearing figure, but the figure soon turns into the full form of Yidra. Yidra, when transformed fully into her actual form, introduces herself as the Witch of Dreams, and formally requests Sehan to become her herald. Sehan smiles and nods while looking at her, and soon he becomes the herald of the outer god, Yidra. Following this, he gets the evocation ability, an ability that lets one's body channel the power of a god temporarily. Although Sehan has chosen this himself, he wasn't aware of the risk of death that comes along with this ability. He could barely feel his body and felt that he might even lose his mind if he didn't hold on instantly. Nevertheless, he takes a breath because the willpower of humanity's last player can't be that weak to just give up. Sehan opens his eyes once he's gathered all of his strength and confidently rises from the ground. He jumps high above the ground, making the rocks crumble down beneath him. However, Sangwon keeps standing strong and claims that he couldn't care less if Sehan is a herald. As Sehan gets closer to Sangwon, he swings his arm to attack with his lightning ability, whereas Sangwon does the same with his fire ability. Their arms collide at the same time, but to Sangwon's astonishment, his Clayum Soleil disappears when it strikes against Sehan's attack. Before Sangwon can think about what he should do, Sehan grabs his sword and thrusts it into Sangwon's body, making him spit out blood. Sehan then scoffs at Sangwon, reminding him how he was already told that he needs to experience it to understand the things Sehan has got better than him. While Sehan is still holding Sangwon, Lin secretly appears from behind him and lunges onto him to attack. Even so, Sehan instantly senses it and quickly teleports to her back, making her stab just the air. Lin doesn't give up and quickly turns around before dashing towards Sehan. Sehan notices that Lin is using Suho's ability with the help of her imitation ability. On top of that, she is not just imitating it, she is even handling it quite perfectly despite being inexperienced. Lin gets close to Sehan, but he manages to dodge her attack anyway. She then uses another ability of fire through which she makes a tornado of fire. He notices that she is now using Junsik's ability and acknowledges the incredibleness of her talent. However, he wonders if her talent is still not ready and steps forward to fight against her. Lin continues to attack her while Sehan dodges it, but when he finally attempts to attack her, she receives a great hit. When Yidra watches it from above, her interest peaks since she hadn't expected Sehan to pull this trick. Yidra then declares that the stage is set, and her avatar, Sehan, also gets charged with the abilities. A battle between a young girl who is trying to take revenge for her father's death and a chosen herald who has slaughtered a countless number of players begins. This is an interesting scenario that should not be delayed any longer. Lin and Sehan continue to attack each other furiously. He questions her why she is adamant about killing him, and asks if it's so because of what Sehan did to her father. After a moment of silence, Lin lunges forward, saying that it is part of the reason. Sehan succeeds in eluding the attack, and it is when she continues that the reason she wants to end him is that he is too cruel to himself and to others around him, and if it continues, there'd be no one left around. Sehan scoffs at her statement, calling it a joke, and asks her why she's lecturing him when she hasn't done anything yet herself. She ignores his arrogance and tries to make him understand that he could have turned out better if he wasn't so deep into the hell of his ego. Lin conjures up a sword and further claims that the happenings of today are just the beginning, so even if he gets through all of this unscathed, he would still deeply regret his every action later. Therefore, she pledges to stop him as a daughter of Luke Taylor, since he'd have done the same. Once Lin's sword has appeared fully, she calls the goddess of justice, Astrea, and requests Astrea to accept her as a herald. When Astrea looks at Lin, she gets reminded of Luke and instantly accepts Lin's request. Jester, who is resting peacefully, feels quite bored when she wonders if she should join the game and transform herself as a male god. It is then when she looks at the game and sees the two chosen heralds fighting each other. When she notices that one of them is Astrea, whereas the other one is Yidra, she scoffs and calls it a fight between an ant and an elephant. Jester recognizes Lin's effort in putting up a decent fight against an outrageously powerful opponent, and acknowledges Sehan as a man with exceptional talent. She notices how he's holding himself up despite being under the evocation spell, and states that he has the potential of becoming a god if he had more divinity. After realizing that this intense fight isn't something to miss, Jester shakes herself out of her thoughts and decides to try logging back into the game. Once Mina is done dealing with the players, she comes to see the fight between Lin and Sehan. She had expected Lin to handle the powers of a herald, and after seeing her, she thinks how it'd have been so much different had she become the herald instead of her father, Luke. Nevertheless, Mina tells herself that she's got no time to be impressed with Lin since she can get killed any instant if she lets down her guard while this monstrous prodigy grows stronger every minute. Sehan uses his extreme abilities and starts attacking Lin from various directions. Lin manages to dodge those swords coming in her direction and jumps up. She lands behind Sehan, and with no time wasted, she pierces her sword into Sehan's body. Unlike Unluckily for Lin, it turns out that the Seihan she just stabbed was just an illusion of him, which evaporates in air after getting stabbed. When she looks up, she sees various illusions of Seihan at different places, and her anger peaks. She grips her sword firmly and makes a huge explosion of fire and lava from within the ground. Seihan then conjures a giant artificial meteorite made from the combined Eternium ore found in the dungeons. He makes it fall and crash into the ground. After crashing, it cracks instantly, and great energy starts to emit from it, making the meteorite break into pieces and scatter around. Lin gets hit by those pieces, and using his powers, Seihan cages her inside between a giant ball of the rocks. However, it wasn't enough to stop her since she uses all of her power and sets herself free from that ball of rocks. This results in the ball of rocks breaking, and she jumps away from it. Seihan starts to feel it impossible to keep her down, and thinks of her as the pinnacle of humanity. The two of them once again prepare themselves for the attack, and she jumps towards Seihan to land a hit. Lin conjures up a shining blade to slash Seihan with, but he immediately jumps up before the blade can hit him. The sight of the escalating battle leaves the players in shock, and questions the existence of the shining blade. Mina's eyes widen and her jaw drops with shock, and she wonders if she is dreaming. Just like Lin's outrageous shining blade ability, Seihan's swords coming through multiple portals leaves everyone devastated. Mina remarks that the battle has gone far beyond the scope of a human conflict already, and is shocked to see what a battle between two heralds look like. Soon enough, Lin and Seihan's powers clash against each other and an explosion occurs. Meanwhile, Mina suddenly flinches when she senses something behind her, and upon turning around, she sees a large number of the gods' personal observers in the sky. She can't believe the number of those present there and recalls how she only saw this many in the early phases of the game. All of a sudden, she realizes something about Seihan, and admits that he is an incredible person without any doubt. Seihan pulls out his sword while thinking that should have been enough for the visual presentation. Using that sword, he defends himself against the attacks of Lin's shining blade, and opens a portal to absorb it. This shocks Lin, and she has a hard time believing that Seihan just wrapped her attack into a pocket dimension. Lin has now believed that her simple and straightforward attacks are not going to affect Seihan. Therefore, she dashes towards him in order to divert his focus with the attack, so when he tries to block it, she decides that she would attack his neck from the side. Lin swings her shining blade and thrusts it into Seihan's chest. She was expecting him to block it, but he didn't. Instead, he swings his own sword and thrusts it into Lin. She cannot believe why he decided to exchange blows in a situation like this. Seihan pushes Lin back after the attack and places his hand over his chest, whereas she plops down onto the ground. The two of them glare into each other's eyes before Lin completely falls down onto the flower. The gods' observers feel disappointed over this, and wonder if the battle is going to end by the death of both of them. On the other hand, Seihan clenches his chest and greatly feels the absence of his celestial slayer and regenerative abilities. He tries to compose by reminding himself that he's still got unfinished work. While he wonders if he has any time to have elixir, he gets notified about his quest completing successfully. This news makes him relieved, and he looks forward to the spectacular ending. He takes out a magical stone and cracks it, which results in a very bright flash. The players get confused, and Mina wonders about what is going on. Lin wakes up and sees that the once dark place has brightened up with natural daylight. She manages to sit up and asks about what has happened, to which Mina explains to her about the magical item which emits a kind of gas that puts people into a coma if they smell it. While pouring elixir on Seihan's wound, Mina further tells Lin that a few people used this item in ancient days of the games since it also had effect on the monsters. However, since it only works on weaker mobs, quite a lot of players forgot about it over time. This time, Seihan used it to fake everyone's death so that the quest can be cleared. Mina reveals that Seihan came to her a few days ago to have her make an improvised bomb that could spread the coma-inducing gas and an elixir from the concentrated ingredients of the same item. Then using the bomb, he spread the gas among the civilians and stabbed the high-level players with an elixir-infused dagger. Keeping everyone safe was also necessary. Thus, the gas enabled them to fall into a coma at the same time. Mina tells Lin about how Seihan made sure to be thorough by even lacing the sewers with the elixir. Therefore, she also came to help him out in taking care of some of the players, and this is how everyone involved in the quest got to fake their deaths. After knowing the truth, Lin gets annoyed at the fact that they weren't asked for cooperation. Mina answers that it is so because then nothing would have been changed once the quest was done. After saying this, Mina points at the gods' observers in the sky, and Lin finally accepts that she was wrong about Seihan, since he had already found a better way for them. When Lin thanks Seihan, Mina chuckles, finding it too emotional. She looks over at young Jester's observing eye, and asks about her opinion by calling her real name Loki. Yidra looks over at the result of Seihan's strategy, and compares it to a scene from some movie. She analyzes how not a single person has died, and even the gods have returned to this world, making this lifeless game flourish once again with a better ending for humanity. Yidra finds it quite ironic because this world is just a dream, yet Seihan showed great sense of determination to see this through. Moreover, he managed to accomplish what no one could, which doesn't make him humanity's last player for nothing, but rather an astounding avatar of whom Yidra feels proud. When Seihan used the evocation ability, it's when Yidra learned the truth. She didn't think he'd ever sign a contract with her counterpart in his world, because it would stop him from opening the gate. Thus, Lin is the most crucial key, though Seihan would need 2 keys to open the gate. Yidra waits for him to realize this, so she can enjoy his reaction. Nevertheless, she still feels bad about Laplace's hourglass being the only reward for this ending. Thus, she decides to bless him with a personal gift. Seihan wakes up in a dark place and wonders if he's returned to the real world. This saddens him since he wanted to witness everything change, but he accepts the reality anyways. While thinking about it, suddenly he sees the Laplace hourglass in his hand, which reveals the future of a person. He gets up and decides to leave, but suddenly a notification pops up. Seihan has unlocked an achievement, a herald that I used to know. and he becomes the first one to have it. Moreover, he obtains a new ability as a premium reward due to an unknown intervention. He looks at all of this confusedly, wondering if it wasn't just a dream made by the dungeon. Baxil and Jisoo look at him sitting inside and call him out, so he asks them about how long they have been waiting. When Baxil claims it to be exactly 7 hours and 22 minutes, he is shocked, but tells them to come along. As they step out of the place, Seihan realizes that he has a chance to change everything in this world. On the other hand, Jisoo hides behind Laplace's hourglass, while Yidra hopes that Seihan likes her gift. After returning, Seihan realizes that he has obtained Yidra's succession ability of Pocket Dimension as his newly obtained ability. He recalls how he used it in his previous playthrough with the evocation spell, but finds it impossible to use it on living beings or massive objects under normal circumstances. Even so, he finds it usable for linking the dimension to his inventory. Seihan then wonders how he got this ability when the dungeons never reward a player with succession ability. He understands that Yidra is involved in it, so he waits for her to reach out to him when she gets to know that he has her ability. When Mina finds out about Seihan's new ability, she seems surprised, but Seihan is more surprised to see her in her old self again. When he gets to know that she's going for a walk, he realizes that she must be going to look for her friends, so he asks her to be careful of strangers. Once she's assured him of being careful, he states to him how different he's been since he returned from the dungeon. When asked about if the dungeon was quite tough, he affirms and tells her to stay away from them. She leaves home after saying that she isn't interested either. Seihan wonders if he should help Mina sort her problems since it had something to do with a demon. Thus, he decides to first gather some information. Later, Jisoo looks through Seihan's place for him but doesn't find him. She is then reminded of Lin and Bexiol and recalls how scary they felt even though she had done nothing to them. Jisoo then thinks about how she also entered the dungeon after Seihan and found the place an exact copy of the world she lives in, a replication of her childhood nightmare. Even though she failed to perfectly complete the quest, the dungeon got satisfied. She then takes out Laplace's hourglass and wonders what kind of person she'd see if she used it on herself. Nevertheless, she drops the idea and is reminded of when Luke Taylor asked her if she's a demon contractor sent by the Shaded Sky clan. She remembers that the clan is taking control over the Gangbuk district, and their grandmaster is supposedly a demon contractor. Therefore, she decides to meet them out of boredom. John meets Sugyun, the deep web of the underworld, and asks him about the Shaded Sky. When questioned about what exactly he wants to know, John asks for their location. Sugyun has already recognized John, so he wonders why he's asking about the Shaded Sky clan when his clan has been completely destroyed. He can't even consider the possibility of John wanting to fight the Shaded Sky clan since he won't be able to compete with them alone, even if that is a newly developed guild. Therefore, Sugyun considers it harmless to share the location of the Shaded Sky clan with John, and asks for 1,000 points in return. John finds it cheap, but the truth is that Sugyun asks for a cheaper price because he didn't want to put himself in danger by asking for too much. Thus, after receiving the points, Sugyun leaves immediately. After Sugyun leaves, Azazel appears and asks John about why he asked for their location when he already knows it. He replies to her that it is so because he wants them to know that he's looking for them, since it will cause some gossip, which will make the Grandmaster of the clan be present there when he goes himself. When John claims that he's quite famous for them to spread the news, Azazel questions his confidence for thinking he can handle them all by himself. Instead of answering, he asks her about her opinions, so she immediately accepts that her question was unnecessary. He then announces that he'll visit the Shaded Sky clan tomorrow, because Sugyun would be spreading the words right now. Thus, he hopes that the Steel Demon, Park Doyeon, won't disappoint him. Once Seihan finds out where Mina's friends are, he thinks about how to end their demon contract. He goes through a few ways, like destroying a demonic relic like Shinjan, but realizes that it isn't easy since he has seen it happening only once throughout both of his playthroughs. Whereas, the easiest way is for the demon to cancel the contract himself, but it won't be as simple. Seihan returns home and finds out that there's no one there except Lin and Bexiol. When Lin reveals that they're out to farm points, whereas Mina went for a walk, Seihan asks about Jisoo. She answers that Jisoo has also gone for a stroll, which makes him doubt about Jisoo's whereabouts. Seihan knows that Jisoo doesn't wander around unless there's a reason since she used to be busy studying for college, and ever since the world changed, she's always been either training or killing monsters. Suddenly Lin remembers that Jisoo told her about visiting a guild, so when she tells it to Seihan, he flinches. As soon as Lin mentions that the name of the guild was Shaded Sky, Seihan immediately turns and bolts away. He knows for a fact that Jisoo only remembers the names of the guilds that she wishes to destroy. He thinks about what's suddenly gone through her mind, and wonders if she's sensible enough to spare Mina's friends. The Grandmaster of the Shaded Sky Guild, Doyoung, gets to know about how John's looking for them, and he wonders what could be the reason. He flips his table out of frustration, and thinks about how he also wanted to fight against John, and become the strongest demon contractor, so that he could capture Sua to have the entire Seoul region under his control. He plans on making his minions attack her after he's done with John, because if he can't have Sua's powers, then no one else can either. Afterwards, he plans on being called the Shaded Sky. Sua John's future is changing, and she decides to follow him because it means that someone else is influencing his destiny. However, she doesn't reveal it to him, and they enter the building of the Shaded Sky Guild. To John's surprise, the building seems quiet and empty until he hears sounds from upstairs. Before he'd go upstairs, Sua tells him that her brother must be locked in the basement, so he goes to the basement with her. While walking downstairs, John senses two people talking about how it's the best place for them to hide, so he decides to look in the other direction. When Sua insists he check that direction, he reveals what he sensed, adding that it didn't sound like her brother. However, she continues insisting, so he realizes that she must have had a vision. Juan and Sua enter the clan that took Sua's brother, but Juan finds two girls trying to hide from them. That took him by surprise as he asked, "What are children doing here?" He mumbles to himself, saying that he knew the members of this clan were low, but they are even using kids as employees. The kids in the corner look at each other as one of them mumbles to the other, asking where everyone is because they told them to come up here earlier because of this guy, referring to Juan. The other girl worries, asking what if they were all killed and they are just hiding because they didn't want to fight. The girl wearing the ponytail clicks her tongue and starts to stand up, saying that there is no other choice but to do that, as they both kneel in front of Juan, begging him to spare their lives. Juan just stares at them, and then asks Sua without turning if she knew this would happen, and this is why she took him here. Sua nods. Then Juan asks if Sua is asking to take the girls with them as well. Sua quickly says no, as Juan thinks, asking himself if there is something special about the two girls when they are nothing more than devil's servants. Sua runs away, telling Juan that there is no time and they have to save her older brother, and Juan follows her, leaving the girls. A heavy thump stops him, but Juan thinks that they will face whatever that is sooner or later. Juan stops following Sua and asks the girls why they are following him. The girl in the ponytail replies that they somehow got here by themselves, so they are wondering if they could get out with him. Then she introduces herself as FeMi, and the other quiet girl as Jiseon. Juan cheekily replies that he did not ask them for the introduction. He thinks that there is no way kids would have joined Cape of Darkness on their own. He turns around to say something to them, but just then Sua finds her brother and calls out for him. She sees her brother lying unconscious in a cell. Juan looks at Suho and asks if this is her brother. Sua nods with teary eyes, saying that Suho is her brother. Juan bends the bars and holds Suho. He tells Sua that Suho has a high fever, so for now it's better to take him to the upper floor. Juan holds him as they make their way to the upper floor with Sua, FeMi, and Jiseon following him. Juan looks at the empty floor and concludes that something is wrong here, that he can't see a single bug anywhere. Suddenly Sua senses something as Juan yells at everyone to get down. Jisoo cracks the ceiling and comes down holding Do-young. FeMi recognizes their guildmaster as she asks herself if he's dead already. Jisoo throws him on the ground and turns to greet Juan, exclaiming that finally they meet again, and says that she wasn't thinking that they would meet like this. Juan examines her with a new proper weapon. Suddenly Jisoo charges at him in full speed as Juan barely dodges the attack, but Jisoo tries to hit him again, going berserk. Juan wonders why she is acting in such a reckless manner and punches her in the stomach, but Jisoo keeps attacking him, taking him by surprise. His attack didn't work as he understands that Jisoo has no intention of blocking. She attacks him on his face, but Juan heals it quickly, taking a proper fighting position now. He thinks how he has hardened his body by demonic power, yet he is still in such a state. He looks at Do-young and wonders that he must have lived up to his nickname Iron Horse, seeing his limbs are still attached. He looks at Jisoo, whose eyes have gone red, and she stands like a hungry tiger. He concludes that if he takes even one direct attack in this fight, he will die. Jisoo takes her weapon as Juan keeps staring at her. She bangs it on the ground, creating an explosion, then strides toward Juan, taking him off balance. Juan thinks as he's falling how Jisoo has become a whole lot stronger than back then. It's not just her stats that have increased, she also doesn't rely on her senses anymore. She's learned the proper way of responding to attacks. She keeps striding forward, aiming her weapon at him as Juan keeps backing up and dodging her blows. He concludes that fighting with Jisoo right now will only cause damage, but if he runs away just because of that, Sua, her brother, and the girls wouldn't be safe. Then he remembers how the girls are already the puppets of the devil. He exhales and takes a proper stance, thinking that he has no chance but to fight. And if he can't end it in one blow, then he will be the one to lose. Jisoo walks toward him with her weapon in one hand and a rock in the other. She eventually throws it in his direction. Juan tries to punch it, but behind the rock, Jisoo punches him again. He gathers all the magic in the mask to counterattack. But as soon as he does, Jisoo smiles, and he realizes she has absolutely no intention of avoiding his attack. Rather, she continues charging in. She strikes again, taking him off his feet, and Juan counterattacks her. Juan coughs, realizing that he's in a sorry state, and the damage already would have brought him his death if he wasn't a contractee. He looks at Jisoo, who lays unconscious in her own blood, thinking the attack must have been strong enough to finish her off. He stands up as FeMi asks if she's dead, but then Jiseon screeches, saying that she's still moving. Juan quickly turns around to look at her, thinking her spine was completely broken, so there's no way she'd be able to stand up. But Jisoo cracks up standing. She stares at him with a smile and says that was exactly the amount of damage she thought he'd be able to deal. Juan looks at her as she picks up her staff, thinking that he has no hidden strength or trump card left. Jisoo is looking at him as if he's just a worthless rock on the side of the road. He asks himself if this is what humans are to her. Juan swallows and closes his eyes. Jisoo raises her weapon and places it on Juan's face. Juan opens his eyes, asking why she stopped what she was doing. Jisoo smiles, saying that she won this time, and asks if he wants to continue. Juan wonders if it's possible that she's still held up over what happened last time. If she's talking about when he made a sneak attack on her comrades, then she'd probably think it's better to just kill him. Jisoo says that he didn't kill anyone that day, even though he could have. She admits that she does want to kill him, but there are children behind him. Then she checks her stats and conveys Seihan's message, that there's someone else who also doesn't want Juan to be killed. Juan asks in confusion if she's letting them go. She clicks her tongue and says that she's sensitive to evil intentions, and at the very least, she can't see enough evil intent from him to justify killing him right now, and asks if he thinks of as some serial killer. Then she thinks that Seihan knows Juan will protect the kids, and quietly takes her leave, walking away and leaving them alone. Juan takes Suho and thinks about Seihan, the crow, and how now he's in his debt. Jisoo makes her way outside the building after fighting Juan, and a heart beating weirdly quick could be heard. It seemed like what Juan had said earlier had touched something in her heart. She remembers what Juan had said to her when they stopped fighting. Juan had stated that he is curious about something, and had asked why she followed him around, and said that she could become a lot stronger if she were just doing things alone. Jisoo asks what Juan meant by him, and Juan had replied that he meant the crow. He said that he knows for sure he is strong, but she is also exceptionally strong, and yet it seems like Jisoo is weirdly obedient towards him. Jisoo looked down, asking herself if that is the case, and Juan reminded her that she checked her stats window while they were fighting, and asked if that was a message from the crow. He said that he can tell just from how she didn't kill him because of it. Jisoo turns around and says that it's a secret, and now she thinks that it's true that she is weirdly obedient, and Juan is not wrong. And after all, humans don't throw away those who are obedient, but not yet. and it's still not time. She reminds herself that she needs to be quiet and wait until she is strong enough to hold him fast, even if he tries to run away. Sehan looks at Hwan holding Suhoa with Haimi, Jaime, and Sua following him from behind, and thinks that he is sure they are Mina's friends, who he remembers seeing in the Dungeon of the Dreams. He senses a presence from behind, and without turning back he recognizes Azazel. He says with determination that she is the devil who formed a contract with Hwan. Azazel laughs and says that it's surprising, and shows interest that he knows who she is even though she hasn't introduced herself. He thinks that it's sure this one didn't form a contract with anyone in his past life, and he's sure that she would be quite lazy as the demon of sloth, yet she still chose a contractee. He finally turns around and replies that he has his sources. Azazel agrees, nodding her head, and says that she knows there are a lot of ways, and starts listing the possibilities, that he might have seen the future, or he might have a skill that shows him a certain keyword. Since the beginning, there have been a lot of things that cannot be known in this world, and it's easy to make things up too. Then she says that she thought he would kill her contractee. Sehan replies that he could have, and Azazel asks, then why didn't he kill him? Sehan looks down and says that there is a reason. After a short silence, he replies that the children need to live. Azazel asks if that's because of the contract. Sehan nods, replying that they are children who have already formed a contract with devils. Only a contract with a higher level devil can overrule that. Azazel thinks for a while, then claps her hands, saying that it'll be easier for her either way, since she won't have to put any more effort in, and she doesn't mind one or two more puppets. She says that she needed a maid of sorts. Sehan smiles, saying that she accepted his offer fairly easily. Azazel replies that he is quite interesting too, so she wants to have a good relationship with him. And to add to that, most devils only care about their own pleasures, but it doesn't seem like she is the only person who has taken interest in him, giving him a knowing smile. Azazel clicks her tongue and tells him that he has caught the attention of quite the annoying thing. Sehan looks at her eye and thinks that he should know that he possesses his complete victory skill and asks himself, then why isn't he contacting him? Azazel turns around and announces that she should start heading out to her contractee, and bids him goodbye, vanishing into thin air after saying that she will meet him soon. Sehan sits down saying that he should be able to prepare for things no matter what happens now, and he has assigned a crow to him too, so if they were to meet again another time, and asks, would it be somewhere like the Devilldom tournament? At Devilldom, Palace of Lust, the man in red remembers Sehan, thinking how he wasn't sated with just going around doing absurd things, that he even got him called for a trial of self-reflection. He asks himself, who would have known that the gods would stake a claim on something like this, and says that they just have uselessly high divinity. He looks at the palace and scoffs, saying that it's rather flashy. He opens the gate as Acators, the sixth demon, demon of lust, welcomes him with a smile and asks what he wants. The man in red replies that he is enjoying the game, that it's an honor. Acators asks what he wants, as the man replies that he has come here to ask for a favor. Acators looks at him with sultry eyes and signals for him to ask for the favor. The man shyly tells him that, to put it simply, he would like to borrow his power, to be exact, the power of his contractee. Sehan checks his stats as he gains another skill, mental resilience. Sehan gets happy and thinks how A-rank skill choices are nice. They give him mental resilience, a skill that can't be acquired by normal means, which is a growth type skill to top it off. He should be able to advance it to S-rank if he does some hard work. If he does, then he can consider himself immune to mentality attacks. The next time Sehan meets Jisoo, he asks if she can help him a little. He tells her to sit down as they both take a seat on the gym floor. She asks if she is supposed to just sit down, and Sehan tells her to just stare at him. She comes closer to him and asks if she's supposed to stare at him like this. Sehan gets back and says that if she can emit the bloodthirst from the heavenly murderer's body and try to show it like she did when she was fricking up the guys on the devil's side. She sighs, saying that it seems like he's acquired another weird skill. She takes a deep breath and opens her eyes as they engulf in a red glow. Sehan flinches as the skill starts activating. She asks if it's fine for him, and Sehan asks if she can make it any stronger. She nods and widens her eyes, and Sehan flinches hard. He grits his teeth and thinks that, as he thought, the murderous intent that comes from the heavenly murderer's body itself is treated as a mental attack. Normal players wouldn't be able to move properly, and he would be able to train properly like this. They sat there for a long time as Sehan signals her to stop for today. Sehan asks if there is something Jisoo wants from him, because it seems like it's always him who is asking for favors. Jisoo reminds him that she gave him weapons, so they're even. Sehan replies that he gave them to her because she said she wanted them. Then he tells Jisoo that they would be doing this for the meantime. Jisoo asks for the time duration, and Sehan replies that it will take them around a week. Then he says that he understands it's a stretch considering how busy they are nowadays, but Jisoo agrees, saying that she's fine even if they do this every day, and there is nothing that she wants to do in particular. Then after a moment of silence, she says that there is something she wants, which is for them to do this in one of their rooms alone, with just the two of them. Sehan cluelessly asks if it's because no one could get hurt in the process. Jisoo sighs, saying something like that. Sehan thinks how this makes sense, because if Lin or Baekseol were to come into contact with Jisoo's murderous intent, then they would receive quite the shock. Sehan tells her then he will come to her room, or she can come to his room starting from tomorrow. 2 months later, Sehan stares at the event quest and thinks how the information message sounds polite, since it's an event that is being managed by the publisher. And he is sure that the location is Glastonbury. That is where there was an eyewitness account of Arthur, the third-party member candidate. He thinks that he should be able to give it over safely since he has reached S-rank on his mental resilience skill too. Sehan alerts that it should be starting soon as Mina trembles, saying that she's nervous and asks if she actually made it in the top 100. Sehan smirks, asking who else would be in the top 100 if not her. Mina replies that she doesn't particularly want to participate in an event like this, and wonders if Haimi or Jiseon got into the top 100. Sehan wonders that it seems like she really doesn't want this, and it's not a surprise because she has never experienced anything good while completing a quest. And to add to that, she would feel less like participating since she finally got in contact with the friends she had been looking for. Jisoo asks if they are going to group up once they get dropped into their spots. Sehan replies that it's better to think about that only after seeing the quest details. Changwoo says that Jisoo is indifferent but he is quite nervous. Siu encourages him, saying that he should not get worried because he made him an equipment. Sehan smiles, smiles, thinking that he is not worried about Changwoo, and how he has been giving him a lot of pointers lately. And it seems like he doesn't feel it because Jisoo is seriously strong, but he is amazing too. He thinks how 4 of them will be going soon. He is worried about just leaving the kids behind, but it should be fine since Luke is here. Just then, the transportation starts as they get into their positions. Seihan says that he will be seeing them later and lands in England, Glastonbury. He asks if this is the main stage for the event. Then suddenly Bexel asks what she's doing here. Seihan stares at her, asking the same thing. She tells him that she was playing with Lin and somehow ended up here. Seihan thinks that she is considered his pet in the game, and maybe that's why she followed him here, and for now he should protect her as much as he can. A loud clash startles him as someone attacks Seihan from behind, but Baekseol ends him on the spot. She looks at Seihan and apologizes, saying that the monsters appeared out of nowhere and asks if he wants to say something to her. Seihan meekly replies that even if he wanted to, he better not say anything to her now. Seihan looks at the monsters in the land, and Baekseol tells him that there seem to be quite a lot. Seihan replies that even if they only selected a small number of people, they've gathered players from all the servers. He thinks that this situation is something sudden. He summons his crow and looks out to his members, and assumes that all of them are doing a good job dealing with their monsters. Seihan waits for a while as the sky cracks open and the man in blue appears. Seihan recognizes him as the GM of England, Akinen. Akinen announces and greets all the players. He tells them that the reason he has called everyone here for the event quest is for the bonus time. He says that it's something like a gift that is given to all of the players who are representing their servers. They would have already seen it through their stats windows, but the quest is a treasure hunt, and there are items of at least D rank and above spread out all over the region of Glastonbury. It can be a place as basic as inside a treasure chest, in the ground, or on a tree. He adds that players can also gain the items by slaying certain monsters, and the only thing they must be wary of is to not agitate the sentinel. Even though this is a treasure hunt, the sentinel of Glastonbury is a dragon, so it's best to avoid it at all costs. Eric Sanders, contracted to the god Apollon, asks if he can kill the sentinel. Seihan looks at him thinking, for someone to be chosen by the god of the sun, he treats Kang Junsik of Silver Hand as his rival. And now that he thinks about it, a few of the Silver Hand executives must be here too. Latecomers like Suho wouldn't be here, but Kang Junsik, Cheon Sanghwan, and Lee Surin definitely should be. Akinen replies to Eric that he knows him because he has heard of his fame, and that he has hunted a sentinel. And now that he takes a proper look, there is another player who has killed a sentinel. And for his information, the sentinel that he killed was the 4th one. The 1st to 3rd sentinels were killed by just one player. Eric clicks his tongue, telling him to stop spouting nonsense. He asks if the player killed a sentinel all alone, and 3 of them? Even if he believes that he is 4th, should he believe this? Akinen smiles, saying that it is the truth, and he will not be revealing who it is, since they themselves are not. But there is definitely a player who has killed 3 sentinels present here. Bexel asks why Seihan is hiding it, to which he replies that it will get annoying if he gets found out. He thinks about Acators, that it seems like he has been going around gossiping a lot. Akinen claps to get the attention back on him and says that he will continue explaining the event. And as he said before, items have been distributed all over Glastonbury. The players must gather them and become the owner of them and ask them to take a look at the screen. The players ask if there are no items S rank and above. Akinen replies that there is just one S rank item, and that it will be the most valuable treasure of this treasure hunt, and it is worth 50 points. Eric asks if that is the highest grade an item can be, is SS rank? Akinen sighs and delivers that unfortunately, that does not exist here, and it would be troublesome if an SS rank item was given out already. If an SS rank was here by any chance, it would be worth 100 points. Akinen tells everyone that once the event is over and the points are totaled up, the server with the most points will receive various benefits. That includes an event to gain double points for a certain time period. And with that, he concludes that the treasure hunt is as so. However, it wouldn't be any fun if they were to just hunt for treasures. He reveals that there are various other gimmicks and subquests ready. Seihan remembers the details from his past life. Then it will be the fact that the monsters between night and day are different, and that there is a survivor village nearby, and the subquest will be given there. The monsters that appear at night are particularly strong, and there isn't just one, but 2 sentinels here. He calculates that he should make his move using the details he heard from his past life as a base, and there is also a place that he needs to find as well. Akinen says that there is one thing they all must be aware of, and that is, they cannot put any items that they gain from here into their inventory until after they return to their server. They must store them in a bag or use another skill, and the reason for all that is plundering. And with that, he starts the treasure hunt, telling everyone that the quest's time frame is 2 weeks, and prays for everyone's success in the battle. Bexel asks what Seihan's plan is from now on, and he suggests that they should leave together, leaving the others behind because he's sure they will be okay on their own. Seihan concludes that even though the GM said the SS rank item doesn't exist, he's sure that it does. Seihan tells Baekseol that there will be a village. She asks, locating a place, if that is the said village. But Seihan tells her that place is already under monsters because he can't see any traces of humans there. Bexel asks where the village is, and Seihan replies that he will find out about it using his probe skill. Seihan thinks how he couldn't see any village through Crow's Eye, so the village must be at a place that can't be seen with the naked eye. He starts locating lakes because Arthur told him that the village is close to a large lake, and finds it quickly. He also finds out how Jisoo has joined up with Changwoo, so she won't do anything rash either. Bexel asks how long it will take and says how it seems like it's been long since they entered the forest. Seihan assures her that they will reach there soon. Just then, he hears some players fighting over some item. Seihan sends his crow to inspect and finds Lee Ah-hyung of Lycoris and Saintess Shin Yuhua fighting there. He questions why they are here, since they already have a lot of followers. Bexel asks if he's going to help them because they might end up fighting seriously. He asks if she can tell using her magic, and admits that her abilities are improving daily. He tells her that they'll resolve it on their own, and says he doesn't understand why they're fighting when they're from the same server. He adds that it could get troublesome if they spot him. When they reach the place, Bexel tells him that she can sense strong magic, and it seems to be magic to ward off monsters. Seihan confirms that this is the lake Arthur told him about. He assumes Arthur must have been mentally exhausted after finding out that there would be monsters even around the lake, so he chose to die by drowning, and he ended up there. He gets into the lake, and Bexiel asks if this is necessary. She tells him that she can't swim. Seihan takes her in his arms and tells her to hold her breath, asking if she has some magic she can use underwater. She shakes her head, saying that she still has not reached this level of magic. Seihan tells her to hold her breath again, and with that, Seihan jumps into the water and sinks in deep. He examines the not-so-ordinary lake and thinks how it's possible to find it using power. He goes in deep until he finds some rocks that appear to be under a spell. He moves one rock with precision, and a giant gate opens underwater. He tells Bexiel that they're entering it as a notification tells them they've entered the safe zone. Some guards take them in. Seihan examines the village, thinking how it resembles Glastonbury, and wonders if this is the first time the guards have seen a player from outside looking at their confused faces. The guards lead him into a room where he meets a girl with blue hair who greets him, saying he should be careful since he's from outside, and besides, he comes with something interesting at his side, referring to Bexiel. Seihan asks her to introduce herself. She tells him her name, Morgan Le Fay, owner of Avalon and the Final Witch. Jisoo locates Seihan going elsewhere, thinking how he must be planning something. She thinks how he would have asked for her help if he wanted them to join, but she does not have special skills like Mina now. She can't make equipment like Seo, she can only fight, which Changwoo and Arthur can easily do as well. In the end, she's not special. She remembers that she was with him before the world turned into a game and feels regret. She would have done things differently if she had known. For now, she only has her power to show, and she is far weaker than Seihan to stop him, so it's better to just be obedient to him, just like she did with her parents, since she is always a good child, which is why she has a passive immunity that targets mental status effects, and because of this, the urge to kill wasn't much for her, and she was able to remain a good child. However, the feeling of Seihan getting away is eating her. She controls her urges and stops herself from going berserk so as not to make Seihan hate her. She tells herself that this is not the time, and she should remain a good child, and so she rejects the offer. At Avalon, a utopia where fairies and magicians roam and where the real witch, who has been alive since the end of Legends, Morgan, stays. Seihan tells her how he did not know where he was coming. He wonders if the other two witches are gone since she is the final witch. Morgan asks if she can hear their introductions as well, and tells him that she knows he is the newly appointed crow sign. She stares at Bexiol and says that she thought she was a unicorn, but instead she's a Killen. She examines Bexiol and remembers how the Celts said that they would become elementals or something in the game. She says that it's been so long since she's seen a human here without the guidance of a fairy, so she will grant them a wish. Seihan asks if she can grant him the sword of a myth. Morgan nods, saying that it shouldn't be a problem, and snaps her fingers as the Excalibur appears. Seihan notices that he can't read its details, and he thinks it's not surprising since it's only meant to be seen by the owner. Seihan holds it, thinking that he would be able to use it. Morgan smiles, telling him to ask for something else since the sword is useless for him. He says that he will take this and starts pulling it. Eventually, he pulls it out, scaring Morgan. She offers to give him more stuff. She tries to make excuses, but he assures her that he will return the sword to its owner. She scoffs, asking if he knows the owner since he's not Merlin. Seihan wonders if she meant it as an insult. He makes a deal with her, telling her that he will find the owner within 2 weeks, and in exchange she will reward him with something better. He asks if he can stay here for 2 weeks, and she asks for Bexiel in return. She promises to not do anything weird, saying that she is just interested in an Asian beast. Seihan agrees, only if she teaches Bexiel magic, to which Morgan agrees. Bexiel looks at him with teary eyes as he informs her that it's safer than staying with him, and tells her to call him if anything happens. He tells her to be nice to Morgan, since she is not a bad person. Arthur crumbles as some players from the Asian server find him and start making fun of him. One of them says how the England server is a shit show when a guy like him is part of the top rankers game. One of them taunts him and hits him in his foot. Arthur just takes the hit. The players throw him on the ground as he starts taking out a bottle from his bag. The players worriedly ask what he's doing but then laugh out loud when Arthur takes out a water bottle. Just as another player tries to hit him, Arthur grabs him by his collar, asking what he did to them. The three of them start hitting him everywhere after throwing him. Suddenly, a lot of crows appear on their heads and start beating them. Seihan appears as one player asks who he is. Seihan tells them that he has some business with the guy, telling everyone else to scram. Arthur asks why he saved him. Seihan replies that he can tell Arthur is stronger than those players and asks why he was just taking those hits then. Arthur looks down, admitting that he is weak and can't just show his strength in a place like this. And after all, he is a bastard who left his family to die. Seihan offers that he can fix his leg and his mentality and offers him to join his party. Arthur declines politely, so Seihan asks if it is because of his visions. Seihan says that he wants him to see the reality, but Arthur declines him again, thanking Seihan for trying to help him. Seihan smiles, asking if he can change the topic and asks if by any chance he likes King Arthur. Seihan tells him that Glastonbury is a place where King Arthur's legend lives and breathes, so it's better for it to become their topic. Arthur laughs, saying that his son liked him, not himself in particular, and he promised to take his son there but he couldn't, and work kept him busy. Seihan asks if that was Dreg Gok, the guardian dragon of Wales. Arthur says that he is well informed. Seihan tells him that they will go and meet him then. Seihan takes him up the mountain as Arthur takes in the views, admiring everything around the cave. He says that his son would have loved it. Seihan says how this remark is simple for seeing a hero with his own eyes as he stares at the red dragon. Arthur says how his son told him how different he is from King Arthur. Seihan instantly gets serious and says that he can still be a hero. Just as Arthur starts to decline, Seihan makes the Excalibur appear and says that they can make a reason, and it would be more than enough if he is able to take the sword out. Arthur finally asks why Seihan is doing this much for him. Seihan replies that he wants him to join his party. Seihan looks at Arthur, who stares at the sword with conflicted eyes, and tells him that he knows what visions he sees, and a lot of people have died since the game started, and there are a lot like him. those who see visions of their dead family. Arthur tells him that he wants to keep seeing the visions because he can't stop seeing his son. Seihan yells, telling him that if it really was his family in the vision, then they wouldn't want that to happen to him, and they would have told him to live a better life, and that's why he should take out the sword. He stares him down, finally admitting that as much as Arthur wants a change, Seihan needs him by his side. Just as Arthur was about to pull out the Excalibur, Seihan's crow alerts him through the visions and leaves Arthur there and goes to where his crow was telling him to go. On the other side, Chris yawns, waiting for Seihan to appear as one of the players yells at her to return his comrade in their original stats. She shakes her head, replying that it's the fastest way to call the crow according to the devil. She assures the guy that she won't be killing his comrades, but the guy only screams to get Eric's attention, who seems to be under Chris's mentality magic skill. The man grits his teeth, calling Chris a bitch for using cheating tactics over his comrades. Suddenly Seihan comes around, asking what she is doing, and why is she getting his name involved. Chris smiles, looking at him, and tells him that she has some business with him, that she took a job to have him killed. Seihan stares at her and thinks that he knew she was cocky, but he didn't realize she would be this cocky. She keeps going on, saying how she can't compete with him head on. Then she moves her finger to get the angry guy in her trance as well. She tells him that she wouldn't bother looking around for him because she has heard Seihan tries to save most people whom he comes across with. She tells him to stay still,